Thank you very much, Simon. Good morning, this is Iain Lee on BBC Three Counties Radio. I had a good night's sleep last night. I used all of the tips that you gave me, apart from the one about thanking baby Jesus. I didn't do that, but he was in the back of my head. I used all of your tips, a bit of the lavender, a bit of the whatever the other ones were, and I got a good night's sleep, so thank you very much for that. That's paid off. What it does mean, though, is that I'll probably be a little bit too perky furious this morning. For that, I can only apologise. Coming up in the first hour of the show, we'll be talking about anorexia and how it's affecting more people, even younger. Shenanigans in the badminton yesterday. I didn't see this, but I heard about it. There are people pointing their fingers and alleging that maybe the teams weren't quite playing as well as they could have done to get an easy ride through to the finals. And we've been having a big argument this morning, me and the production team. I say team, I use that term very, very loosely. We're not really a team. Just some people that gather every morning. About clutter and arguing about clutter. And it turns out that we're all very, very messy. Now, I thought it was generally the man in the relationship that was messy and the woman who was a little bit anal and would tidy everything up. But all of the women here are the opposite. Who is the messy one in your relationship, and does it lead to big arguments? I seriously think that my wife and I could split up over this. She's always tidying my stuff up. I know where everything is. I know where everything is in the house, except when she tidies things up. 08459 455 555 81333. Start your text 3CR, or you can email 3cr@bbc.co.uk. We're here until 9 o'clock. It'll be good if you give me a call. I'm only here until Friday, so you've got a few more shows to give me a call. 08459 455 555. Oh, DeBarge. Which one is it? Rhythm of the Night. Fantastic. DeBarge, Rhythm of the Night. It's 9 minutes past 6 on... is it the 1st of August? I think it is. The 1st of August. Who'd have thunk it? It's my wife's birthday tomorrow. I got her some wicked presents. Well, I say wicked presents. I got some perfume. Okay. I got more than that. I've got more than that. Bizarrely, she won't be listening. She's bored of my job, so she won't be listening to this. Bizarrely, I've got I think it's called... Is it a honey spoon? It's like a wooden thing with the honey spoon, because she's been after one for ages, and they're really hard to find. Fortnum & Mason. It was only £6. So I got that. I don't know why I'm telling you this. I don't know if you're interested, but I'll let you know. I feel that we're bonding over this. Some perfume. Tickets to go and see Jennifer Lopez, because she likes a bit of J-Lo. J-Lo CD. What else? Oh, a cake stand, because it was on sale in Fortnum & Mason, but then it was on sale, 75% off, right? But then they didn't take the 75% off. And because it was so posh, I didn't argue with them. It was only £12 reduced to £3. It wasn't like it was £100. But cause it's such a posh shop, I didn't want to argue over £9, so well... Thank you very much. I say these are from me. These are all from my children, of course. I've bought her absolutely nothing, but my 2.5-year-old and my 6-month-old have spoilt her rotten. Although my boy made a birthday card for her yesterday. I was going, don't tell Mummy we've done this. It's a secret. Okay, I won't. Mummy, I've got a secret. I just made a birthday card for you. Now, this is fascinating. The founder of the modern Olympics famously said, the most important thing is not winning, but taking part. So you wonder what he would have made of last night's badminton. Players from China, South Korea and Indonesia all seemed, and was using that word, seemed like they wanted to lose, repeatedly serving into the net and hitting the shuttlecock out of court. They'd already qualified for the next round, and there is speculation they wanted to lose to get an easier draw. At the end, the players were booed off the court.
Tonight has left me with a very nasty taste in the mouth. This afternoon I was disappointed because the British athletes, the British competitors weren't good enough, but you have to accept that in sport if your opponents are better. What I've seen tonight was not sport, it was a disgrace.
Wow, that gentleman there is furious. 8 players have been charged with misconduct for not trying properly. It's unclear what disciplinary action they'll face. But it left a bitter taste not only in that reporter, but in the mouths of these fans.
We hit it over the net more often than that, don't we, when we play? Pathetic, really. You would have expected more from professionals at this level.
Honestly, I've been to probably 500 badminton tournaments in my life, and that is the most disgraceful thing I've ever seen at a tournament. And I can't believe it happened at the Olympic Games.
for a shameful Olympics moment to one of the greatest, because the American swimmer Michael Phelps has become the most decorated Olympian of all time. Last night, he won a gold and a silver medal to take his overall tally to 19. He says it was an emotional night.
Before I got up on the podium tonight, I was like, sorry, boys, I'm not going to be singing this with you guys. I was like, there are too many emotions that are going on. I was like, I'm not even going to be able to get a word out. And I tried to hold myself together as much as I could, but my eyes were getting watery, and it was emotional. It shows that a lot of, that hard work does pay off.
Just blame it on the chlorine in the pool, that's what I do. Overall, China is still top of the medals tale. Team GB are currently in 21st place. No gold for Great Britain yet, but earlier the equestrian team, including Zara Phillips, won silver in the eventing competition. And Britain's women's footballers beat Brazil 1-0 to set up a quarter-final against Canada. Midfielder Kim Little says the support from the Wembley crowd was amazing.
I think the best experience of all our lives, just walking out at the start, to hear all these people cheering for us, was just incredible. I can't actually put it into words. And to get the victory for them, and to hear them at the end is just, unbelievable.
Today there are 20 golds up for grabs. The cyclist Bradley Wiggins will be hoping to grab one of them after his success in the Tour de France. Wiggins revealed he'd had his training kit stolen from the changing rooms at the team hotel. We're assuming and hoping he's got some fresh lycra for today. We'll also be looking out for Helen Glover and Heather Stanning. They're the favourites to take the top spot in the women's rowing pairs. Could Team GB finally bag their first gold medal of the Games? It would be exciting, wouldn't it? Do you think they were overreacting slightly to the badminton play? I don't really know. Would you? We have to be careful because nothing has been proven about these badminton players. Maybe they were having an off day. It could happen. We can't always be at the peak of our performance, as anyone listening to this show yesterday will testify. But were the people overreacting slightly there? Did you see it? Are you a fan of the badminton? Slow tennis, I like to call it. 08459 455, although I'd never say it to a professional or Olympic athlete, of course. That's strictly between you and me. 08459 455 555. Did you see the badminton yesterday? And were you thinking, poor show, chaps, come on now, that's not the way it's done? And if they were caught or found out that they had done that deliberately, what should the punishment be? Slap wrists or booted out of the Olympics? 08459 455 555.
Beds, Hearts and Bucks News.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Good morning, it's 6:15 on Wednesday, August the 1st. These are the headlines this morning on BBC Three Counties Radio. 4 women's doubles pairs in the Olympic badminton competition are facing disciplinary action for allegedly trying to lose to secure an easier draw in the next round. Spectators booed last night as the Chinese top seeds, 2 pairs from South Korea and 1 pair from Indonesia, regularly served into the net or hit wide. Plans to knock down the point in Milton Keynes have been delayed. The owners were due to submit a planning application in June, but are updating their plans following a public exhibition. In sport, Wycombe lost 3-0 to QPR at Adams Park in last night's pre-season friendly. We'll have a full weather bulletin in a few minutes with Phil Garner. And coming up, research claims that more and more children are experiencing anorexia at a younger age. Our reporter has been speaking to an eating disorders support group in Milton Keynes. Kate Robbins filling in for Nick Coffer this week. I think he's back next week, but she's a fantastic listen, and I thoroughly recommend it. Now, people are suffering with anorexia at... Oh, no, hang on a second, I do apologise. We've got the weather coming up. Look, I'm jumping the gun there. I'm jumping the gun. We'll wait for the weather and then we'll do the anorexia story. While we're waiting for that, shall we have a quick look at the front pages? And see what's going on in the world of the newspapers. The Guardian. There's been some fantastic photographs have come out of the Olympics of men flipping in midair and people swimming. The greatest Olympian, Donald McRae, sees Michael Phelps take gold and silver to become the most decorated medalist in the history of the Games. Now, he's won. I was listening to 5 Live, as I often do. Excellent Olympic coverage. And he's won 19 medals, not 19 gold. Not 19 gold, for goodness sake, he's not that good. He's won 19 medals in total. And to reference this, the commentator went, he's won 19. Now, does anybody get that reference? I'm old enough to know exactly what he's referring to. He's referring to a song that was big, I think, in, 1984, 85? Paul Hardcastle and 19. It seems an odd way to celebrate and acknowledge the greatest Olympian of all time by referencing a Paul Hardcastle anti-Vietnam song. You don't get that played very often, do you, on the radio? This is the same, it's a good song. And where you don't get Paul Hardcastle, to go off on a Paul Hardcastle tangent, on those sort of 80s reunion tours. You don't get that, do you? You don't get Tapao, followed by, I can't think of any other, Kajagoogoo, followed by Paul Hardcastle. Could we try and track down Paul Hardcastle and get him on the show? The team, straight to it. Look at that, fantastic, excellent. We'll have him on the show. Paul Hardcastle, can we get him on the show by 9 o'clock, please? There's another fantastic picture. Look at this. The front page of the Times, now serving. Oh my goodness, look at that. Oh, I don't like it. They've done this. That's too clever. They've got like a fold open and keep. There's a picture of, I'm assuming it's a young Chinese lad playing the table tennis. Or it looks like he's about to nose the ball on the table tennis. The Daily Telegraph have printed 6 months behind everyone else. Keep calm and carry on. We are only one medal short of what we should have at this stage, British official insists, as fans await gold. And there's a picture of the posh horse riding team. I don't get the horse riding events. It's very skillful. But I was watching a bit of it yesterday, and I didn't quite get it. You just make the horse go over the jumps and things. But the course was laid out fantastic. It was all like British monuments. They were jumping over a tiny Stonehenge. It was all very Spinal Tap. And let's do The Independent, and we'll do the rest of them a little bit later on. The Independent, ministers plot end to civil service neutrality. Ministers could be given the power to dismiss their most senior civil servants and bring in US-style political appointees to drive through policy. And there's a picture of Michael Phelps with his gold medal, which is very exciting. We'll do the rest of the papers later on. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear.
On FM, AM and online at bbc.co.uk/3 counties. BBC Three Counties Radio.
Now, the story that I attempted to bring you earlier on. People are suffering with anorexia at a younger age than ever before in the UK. That's according to one of the country's leading experts in the field, Brian Lask. Earlier this year, Lask's team also published research showing a genetic predisposition to the disease. Well, our reporter Brendan Murphy went to Milton Keynes to speak to Emma Bacon, the founder of the eating disorders support group Balanced MK.
Well, I think previous statistics have suggested between the ages of 15 and 25 is the most common time for the onset of anorexia. But I think there has definitely been a trend that we've seen in the media and through other specialists I know of people coming forward slightly younger than that. But often what can happen is that people can struggle with issues in the sort of early years, and then it comes about in waves. So maybe they have a slight issue and then they overcome it, they settle down, things balance out, they don't even realise they had an eating disorder, and if it's not dealt with or understood, then it can come back in later years.
Anorexia is something that you've had to deal with yourself, isn't it?
I struggled with anorexia specifically in my early 20s, but I think I had vulnerabilities to feeling insecure about my body image when I was much younger. I was about 4 or 5 years old when I first remember thinking that I'd really like to be just like a small, pale china doll, really delicate and fragile, and that would result in me being taken care of and looked after by my parents and other people. And then when I was about 9 or 10 years of age, I became much more concerned about body image and about moral behaviour, and I felt quite isolated from the rest of my peer group at that age, and I started to feel a lot more subconscious about how I looked and what I wore. In fact, I don't think I've worn a pair of shorts since I was about 10 years old.
I know that your organisation deals with people above 16 who have problems with anorexia, but you said also that you do some outreach programmes to some schools as well, is that right?
Yes, Balance of K has offered lessons within schools in Milton Keynes. One of our aims and objectives is to increase awareness about eating disorders in general. Obviously, we want to prevent the onset of an eating disorder, and in order to do that, we need to outreach to the younger generation. There's a lot of pressure about how people should look, the expectations placed upon them, and it's so important that we try and engage people positively about their bodies and their self-esteem, because low self-esteem is apparent in every single person I've ever met with an eating disorder, and obviously self-esteem is one of the fundamental things that you develop in your childhood.
You have children yourself. How does that make you feel, hearing that there might be some kind of genetic predisposition to having anorexia?
It makes me a little bit nervous, to be honest. I mean, in some ways it's reassuring for me because it helps me to understand and appreciate why I have felt the way that I felt in the past. Not to say that it takes away any responsibility that I have in what's happened, but it helps me just understand things better and therefore forgive myself for some of the things that I might have done. You know, there's a history of eating disorders in my family, and then I've struggled with an eating disorder, and I have a young son and a young daughter, and I can see some of the personality traits within them, and so obviously that makes me nervous, but I realise that what I need to do is to give them a sort of a balanced view of everything and to increase their self-esteem and self-confidence, and if I can do that, then I'm giving them the best chance possible to be well and healthy. With the pressure from the media nowadays, I sometimes feel concerned that that's going to make the next generation even more susceptible to eating disorders. But on a positive note, I'm hopeful that the next generation will also be more savvy about the media, and they'll better understand that what they see in the magazines and the television isn't necessarily reality. So hopefully that will contrast any extra pressures that they have, and they'll be a more stable generation.
That's Emma Bacon, the founder of the Milton Keynes-based eating disorders support group, Balanced MK, and we'll be talking about that more throughout the show. 08459 455 555 is the telephone number if you want to give me a call about that, or any of the other things we're talking about. I particularly want to get your calls on clutter. Who's the messy one in your relationship? That's good, I like that. The noisettes, that girl, we'll have some of that. Thank you very much. Oh dear, the Daily Mirror and the Sun are fighting over what can be the most ridiculous front page. I would say the Mirror wins it. The Sun has got going for Wiggold, Bradley Wiggins Gold. What they've done there is they've made up a word. Cut out and wear your 24-carat Bradley sideburns and back Team GB's bid to win first gold today. This is the biggest selling newspaper in the country. It's got some cut out and keep gold sideburns on the front. But the Daily Mirror, I think, pips it. Here we go. Here we go. Help Bradley triumph by wearing his lucky sideburns with pride as Britain goes for a hat-trick of gold today. And there, they've not just got the sideburns, they've got the whole top, the crest of Bradley Wiggins' head that you can wear. Is that really going to help him? Imagine you were cycling down the street and there were thousands of people lining the street with, like, really bad replicas of your hair or your sideburns stuck to their face. That would freak me out. That's like a bad nightmare. No Daily Express today. That's a disappointment. And the Daily Mail. The moment Zara's gold dream ended, and there's Zara Phillips knocking down... Well, she's not knocking down the top of a jump of horses. And you see, they're post boxes, old-fashioned post boxes. You see what they've done there? It's a fantastic... what do you call it? A course? I guess you'd call it a course. Can you tell I'm not too hot on my equestrian sports?
On FM, AM and online at bbc.co.uk/Three Counties. BBC Three Counties Radio.
I don't want your calls this morning, or your texts, 81333, start your text 3CR, on clutter. And who is the tidy one in the relationship? I always thought that a little bit of stereotyping about to come out of my mouth here. I always thought that the men were the messy ones and that the women were the tidy ones, because at home I've got, and I say messy, there is a logic and a sense to my mess. I know where everything is. We're lucky enough to have a spare room that we laughingly call the office, and it's called an office because it has a computer in there. It is generally, there are piles of paper everywhere and folders and things all over the floor. And that's good because I know where everything is. I'm the only one that goes in there and does work, in inverted commas. And I know where everything is. I know where all my bank statements are. I know where the gas bill is. I know where the invoice for this job. I know where everything is. And then I'll go in there and it'll all be tidy, and the desk will have been polished, and the computer will be clean, and everything will be in a folder somewhere. And I can't find anything. And this happens throughout the whole house. You know, I'll put something down, put my keys down, I'll put my wallet down, and then when I need it, like at 4 o'clock in the morning when I'm leaving to come here, I can't find it. And I have to go to my wife, where are my keys? I don't know. You do know, because it's probably you that moved them. Oh yeah, they'll be in the fruit bowl. Why would you put them in the fruit bowl? I'd left them on the table in the living room. But then talking to the team here, who are predominantly female, I think, we're getting the test results back this afternoon, so I can let you know. They're all saying that they're kind of the messy ones, and it's their boyfriends and husbands that are the ones that are a little bit anal about tidiness. So can you give me a call, dear listener, and let me know which one in your relationship is the tidy one and which one is the messy one? 08459 455 555. And are you like me? Is there a logic and a sense to your messiness? The logic only works in your head. You're the only person that can fathom out that, that bank statement from June of last year is in that pile, third on the right, just by the printer. That one, yes. Does it make sense in your head how that works? 08459 455 555. And you can text, of course, 81333. Start your text 3CR. And email 3cr@bbc.co.uk. Let's see if we can find out by 9 o'clock if it's men or women. I don't want to do one of those horrible, men are worse than women. I don't want any of that. I just want to get a scientific study, as to who are messier, the men or the women. 08459 455 555. We were talking about the Bradley Wiggins sideburns as well, and the wig. The Daily Mirror's got a wig. The Sun has got Bradley Wiggins sideburns. Is anybody actually going to cut those out and wear them today? If you're thinking, well, do you know what? That sounds like a right old laugh. I'm going to do that. I'm going to the cycling actually later on, or I'm going to be watching it in front of the TV. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut those out and I'm going to wear those later on. If you're thinking that, could you give me a call and let me know? Or send me a little text, 81333. Start your text 3CR and just say, do you know what? Yes, I'm going to wear them in. I think it's going to be a right laugh sitting at home with a can of Skoll, wearing those cut-out sideburns. I think that is getting into the Olympic spirit. Let me know. I might pop round and join you. You never know. 08459 455 555 is the telephone number if you want to give me a call. Now, this badminton story I find fascinating. Badminton's world governing body has charged 8 female badminton Olympic players with not using one's best efforts to win a match. That basically sums up any sport I've ever played in. 4 pairs of players, 2 from South Korea, 1 from China and 1 from Indonesia, could now be disciplined. Where are we going with this? One of the fans, we can go to our Olympic reporter, Jane Prendergast is here. Good morning, Jane.
Good morning.
Sorry, Jane, I was a little bit all over the shop there with where I was going. This is fascinating. What more do we know about this?
Well, the controversy here centred, it was the women's doubles. They were playing last night. Opposing players attempted to throw their preliminary round matches. It appears to secure a more favourable draw in the knockout rounds. So I assume that they were already through and were still playing preliminary matches, but were hoping that they'd spotted that if they did this, they would get an easier ride through the next rounds. And of course, crowds at the Wembley Arena were jeering the players from China, South Korea and Indonesia, who repeatedly apparently served into the net and hit the shuttlecock out of court. So it must have been quite farcical to watch. Now, the World Badminton Federation's charged them, as you said, with not using their best efforts and conducting themselves in a manner that is clearly abusive or detrimental to the sport. We don't know yet what their punishment's going to be, but of course, certainly not great for the spectators who have turned up to watch and are expecting to see athletes performing and striving to do their best.
Now, Jen, the people are investigating this, so we it's all speculation and stuff. But if you were going to do something like that, you'd think you'd be a little bit more skillful than just batting it into the net. You'd think you'd kind of try a little bit harder not to do so well, wouldn't you?
No, when I use the word farcical, I mean, really, hitting it into the net and hitting it out of the court, it does seem absolutely ridiculous. I suppose maybe not running as quickly as you could to get a point would be slightly more subtle.
Yep.
But how people in the Olympic Games might think that they could get away with something like this does seem slightly ridiculous.
Be interesting to see how they get disciplined and what happens with that. But last night was a great achievement for the American swimmer Michael Phelps. He's become the most successful Olympian in history. He's got 19 medals, is that right?
That's right. It's completely the opposite story here. Of course, Phelps, who's a phenomenal athlete, he took silver in the 200 metres butterfly. He then won a gold as part of the 4x200 metres freestyle team last night, the freestyle relay team. As you said, 19 Olympic medals. That's one more than the Soviet gymnast Larisa Latinya, who won 18 in the 50s and 60s. And everyone in the Aquatic Centre stood to applaud him at the end of the relay event last night, showing how popular he is as a swimmer and as an Olympian. So out of that number, he's got 15 gold, 2 silver and 2 bronze. His first Olympic Games was in Sydney, and we know that he is going to retire at the end of these games.
Well, thank goodness for that. Give someone else a chance, please, Michael. No gold for Britain, but we did pick up another medal yesterday.
Yes, of course, the equestrian team, Zara Phillips, Mary King, William Fox-Pitt, Tina Cook and Nicola Wilson held off the challenge of New Zealand to take the silver. Germany got the gold. And, of course, this meant Princess Anne got to present her daughter, Zara Phillips, with her silver medal and, of course, the rest of the team as well. There were no individual medals for Mary King and Tina Cook. I should also say as well that the women's footballers yesterday, when we're talking about results, a lot of talk about how impressive they have been. A crowd of 70,000 watched them last night at Wembley. They were already through to the quarter-finals, but they beat Brazil last night 1-0. Steph Houghton scored the winner, and a lot of talk about women's football today.
And what can you highlight for us today? What should we be looking out for?
Well, I think you've already been talking, from what I can gather, about Bradley Wiggins, of course, in action today in the cycling time trial. I haven't got a paper, but I want my sideburns.
Are you going to wear them, Jane?
Oh, definitely.
Fantastic. Get Canna Lager and get some sideburns on you.
A fantastic addition to my two-ways. But both these time trials, the cycling time trials, it's cyclist against what? They start and finish at Hampton Court Palace. The women go over 18 miles, the men 27.3 miles. And, of course, Wiggins has had a phenomenal year. Britain's Emma Pooley will take part in the women's. She's in great shape. She'll be in the hunt for a medal as well. I should also say, hotly tipped for a gold this morning, 20 past 10ish, the women's rowing pair, Helen Glover and Heather Stanning. They set a record, a new Olympic record, to qualify for the final, which will take place this morning. So if you're around at that time, maybe put your TV on.
Jane, thank you very much. Jane Prendergast, our Olympics reporter. I do enjoy our chats with Jane first thing in the morning. And I have an image of her wearing those ridiculous Bradley Wiggins sideburns from The Sun. Now, Joe is in Letchworth. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning, Ian. How are you?
I'm very well. Now, if I remember correctly, we spoke yesterday and I asked you to watch a sport that perhaps you weren't that familiar with. Did you do your homework?
I certainly did. Yes. And there was two sports that really came across yesterday. One of them was handball.
Oh, now, I saw handball on the listing last night, and my wife was flicking through. She wanted to watch something. She wouldn't let me watch the weightlifting for some... I don't know why. And handball came up, and I said, I've got no idea what that is. Can we watch it? It's brilliant, isn't it?
Oh. You reckon?
Oh,
come on, man. It's football, but throwing a football at someone.
Football, but throwing it. I know, it's genius. You weren't so keen on the handball then, Joe?
Not my kind of thing. But there was another one here, and there was I haven't watched it yet, and it's the BMXing. Now, I thought we've already got racing on bikes. Now,
I saw that in the listings as well. BMXing, it's in the listings.
Now, Ian, you're roughly the same age as me. Now, when we were kids, right? Do you remember when? In the early 80s, when the BMX first came across from America, and it was wonderful.
Of course.
It had the mag wheels, and it was fantastic. And now we're racing with BMXs, doing exactly the same with bikes, but on a BMX instead.
I'm assuming they're like popping wheelies and doing stunts and stuff. Is that the case? Riding no-handed?
It looks like that they race around the course, and they have a few little jumps as well. But that's about it. And synchronised swimming, that's the other one. I don't get it. It looks very pretty. Yeah. It's beautiful, but it's swimming the same as a person next to you.
Joe, let's be honest. It looks amazing. It's an incredible amount of skill. It's not a sport, is it?
It's not what we'd call competitive sports, you know, what me and you would call competitive sports.
Joe in Letchworth, I'm here for the rest of the week. You are my official Slightly Odd Sports correspondent. I want you to watch the BMXing. No grifter racing, unfortunately, taking part, which is a real shame. Excellent work there. I set him homework, and he did the homework. Thank you, Joe.
Beds, Hearts and Bucks News.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
It's Wednesday, the 1st of August. These are the headlines this morning on BBC Three Counties Radio. 4 women's double pairs in the Olympic badminton competition are facing disciplinary action for allegedly trying to lose to secure an easier draw in the next round. Spectators booed last night as the Chinese top seeds, 2 pairs from South Korea and 1 pair from Indonesia, regularly served into the net or hit wide. Plans to knock down the point in Milton Keynes have been delayed. The owners were due to submit a planning application in June, but are updating their plans following a public exhibition. In sport, Wycombe lost 3-0 to QPR at Adams Park in last night's pre-season friendly. And your weather across Beds, Hearts and Bucks. A brighter day, some sunny spells, but a few showers are also expected. Top temperature, 22 degrees Celsius. Now, if you live in Milton Keynes, you'll be familiar with the point, the red pyramid building that sits near the shopping centre. Next, we'll hear from our reporter to find out more about delays in knocking the point down. We're all singing the Kickstart theme tune. we say singing it, you know, we're making a noise and something is coming out in our head. It sounds like the Kickstart theme tune after the BMXing. It's amazing that BMXing... What else? You know, next will be Rubik's Cube, Olympic standard Rubik's Cube. Now, plans to knock down the point in Milton Keynes have been delayed. The owners were due to submit a planning application in June, but are updating the plans to take into account how the public feel. Our Milton Keynes reporter, Jessica Cooper, is outside the point with details on this. Good morning, Jessica.
Morning, Ian.
What's been suggested should happen to the point?
Well, I'm currently standing just in front of what has become the iconic red triangle in the centre of Milton Keynes. It was, of course, the first multiplex cinema in the country when it opened back in 1985. Unfortunately, now it's practically empty inside and it's also pretty run down on the outside. The plan is to demolish the point and replace it with a mini shopping centre. There'd be high-quality shops and restaurants to better meet the needs of the local people.
Is everything all right there, Jessica? It sounds incredibly busy.
Well, just as I started talking to you, the team from the local council have also started sweeping the road, so... They're busy at work here.
OK, well, we can just about hear you. How has the timetable for this project changed?
Well, a public exhibition was held with the new designs inside the point in May. And I'm just going to pause there whilst the sweeper comes back around.
Yes, you take your time, don't worry.
The thing is...
This is Jessica, Sony Gold. Sony Gold.
Do you know... They literally just came within an inch of the car where I am. So they
are they moving on? Should we play a song or are they going?
No, they've gone now. So
excellent.
I think I can come back to where we were talking about with the public exhibition.
Yes.
Basically, the new designs were put on display inside the point in May, and a planning application was due to be submitted in June, but it wasn't. And I've been told the owners, Hammersons, are reviewing the feedback from the public, and they're looking now to have a second public exhibition next month. In a statement, they say, since the public exhibition in May, we've continued to liaise with local people about proposals to regenerate the point, including a constructive meeting with Mark Lancaster, who's one of the local MPs. And they're now in the process of considering all the feedback received during the consultation, and they're going to be back in September with some updated plans.
You're listening to BBC Three Counties Radio, the home of street sweeping. This is what it... how do... we can just about make you out. How do local people feel about this?
Well, this is a building which seems to divide opinion. Whenever I talk to anybody about it, they either love it or hate it. There's very few people who are in the middle. To look at, it is really run down. The painting's chipping. It looks quite grimy in places, as if it hasn't been cleaned in a while, and there's this kind of green moss which is starting to grow. And it does now look quite out of place, sandwiched between the modern buildings in the heart of the shopping centre here. But it is a landmark in this area. It's a piece of history in Milton Keynes. And when we spoke to shoppers when the plans went on show in May, this is what they told us about what they'd like to see happen to the point.
It's kind of like a landmark now. It's been here for like over 20 odd years. I don't see why they can't convert it.
It does appear to have had its day. They don't seem to do anything much with it these days, but it would be sad.
It served its purpose, but it's a landmark, so keep it.
Why would you want to rip down something that was part of the landscape before they put everything else there?
There's nothing like it anywhere else, and it is part of Milton Keynes. If you ask anyone in Milton Keynes, you've got the concrete cows, the roundabouts and the point.
So overall, people generally agree that they want this area to be regenerated, but many people have said they don't want to lose the history of the point. And it is very quiet here at the moment, but usually this area is really busy.
It's not that quiet, Jessica, to be honest.
It's quiet in terms of people.
Right.
And usually in the day, though, this area is buzzing, really. There's lots of people walking around, going to the shopping centre, but what seems to be unusual is that they seem to ignore the point. Nobody was going inside it when there were shops opened there recently last year. So in future there could be more shops and restaurants here, but it isn't the only building project being discussed in Milton Keynes at the moment. There are also plans for a huge Primark as part of a development to Seckler Gate, which is just a stone's throw away from here, and that would see an expansion to the existing shopping centre. So there could be lots lots of change in this area in future.
Jess, thank you very much. I have no idea what's going on there in terms of noise and it sounds like you're being sucked into space. Jess, thank you very much. Excellent stuff. We managed to get the gist of that. That was Jessica Cooper, our reporter outside the point. And later on, we'll be speaking to the Milton Keynes North MP, Mark Lancaster, who's met with the owners of the point to discuss its future. Now, we've got lots of people listening to us from Milton Keynes who perhaps weren't listening a week ago. You're welcome. Thank you very much for listening. What do you think should be done to the point? Are you a fan of it? Surely if it's run down and it looks that bad, should they just knock it down and build something else? Or should someone spend a few quid and make it look all nice and put some new shops in there and do something creative with it? 08459 455 555. 08459 455 555. Well, that was good, wasn't it? That was the Jim Dolan Project from Watford with their track Real Life. You can hear more... Oh, yeah, thanks. You can hear more music made in the three counties every Friday night from 7 with Gareth Lloyd. We're asking who is the messiest in your relationship, because I would suspect it was mainly men, although the straw poll that we've done here just before the show would indicate that perhaps I'm wrong. Ben in Buckingham has texted in 81333, starting his text 3CR, of course. I wouldn't say I'm messy. This is good. This is total bloke logic. I wouldn't say I'm messy. I just leave things in certain places so I remember where I put things. But I get shouted at, which causes arguments, as my fiancée is very tidy. Well, the shouting at isn't causing the argument. The shouting at is the argument. That's the argument, and that's how that begins. 08459 455 555. Can you give me a call? I want to speak to you. I want someone to be brave enough and put their hands up and say, yes, Ian, do you know what? I am messy, and I thrive in it. Not like those... I'm a big fan of those hoarding programmes. You've seen the hoarding programmes? Because it is a glimpse of what my life would be like if I had never got married and was still, a 39-year-old single man. My life would be like that. Just stacks of newspapers and bags filled with stuff. Once, about 10 years ago, I lived in a flat, and the old lady in the flat downstairs, she knocked on the door. She said, Ian, I can't get in. I've locked my flat. But there's a window. Could you climb in through the window and let me in? I said, of course. And she was a lovely old lady, and I wish I'd never gone in because it was the house of someone... No, I probably can't say it on the radio. It was she obviously had issues because there were thousands of dollies, like not dolls, there were dollies, thousands of them everywhere, and also every room was full of plastic bags, just filled with stuff. And I didn't want to. I did want to have a look, but I did, and I know, yeah, it did. It made me feel like that. I felt a little bit. Oh God. Oh dear, poor lady. But that's where I could go. She was in her 70s, and if things go wrong at home, that's where I could totally end up, easily. So 08459 455 555. Are you messy, or is your partner messy? And do you have arguments about it? Good morning, this is Iain Lee on BBC Three Counties Radio with your breakfast show. In the next hour, more on the shenanigans in the badminton, talking more about anorexia, and I really want to hear your calls about clutter. All of that and more after the news and sport with Simon Oxley.
On FM, AM and online at bbc.co.uk/Three Counties. BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you very much, Simon. Good morning, dear listener. This is Iain Lee on BBC Three Counties Radio. It's 4 minutes past 7. It's the 1st of August. That means, summer's pretty much over, because September's next, and then it's Christmas. That's how it works. I know, I love Christmas. And even at the beginning of August, I can look at it and go, oh, it's going to be the best dinner of the year, loads of presents, and just, watching a load of rubbish on TV. I'm sorted. There'll be no boozing in my house. No boozing in my house, for goodness sakes. This morning, coming up, what have we got? Lots of stuff. We're talking about the shenanigans at the Olympics, where it has been alleged that some of the teams were not playing to their highest standard, so that they get an easier route to the final. If someone could explain exactly how the routing to the final works, could you give me a call? Because I think I've got my head around it, but I haven't got my head around it well enough to explain it on the radio or to anyone. 08459 455 555. And also give me your views on that. If you saw it last night, what did you make on it? We'll be talking more as well about anorexia. Talking about that Chinese swimmer who has shocked everyone. I feel sorry for this poor girl. It's been proved that she's not taken any drugs. So let her just get on with it and enjoy her moment. She's 16 and she swam really fast. What's the problem? We'll be talking more about that. And also, your clutter. I want to find out who is the messiest in your house. 08459 455 555. Is it you? Is it your husband? Is it your wife? Is it something you could possibly split up about? Because this is where the main thrust of the arguments in my house are when my wife moves something without telling me, and I know exactly where everything is, and she goes and moves it. DVDs! Oh! Leave my DVDs and my video games. Leave them by the TV, because I put them there so I know where they are. I think I need a little breather because I'm getting a little bit too excited. I do apologise.
Call 08459 455 555.
08459 455 555.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
I very nearly had an argument with my neighbour yesterday. I was very tired yesterday. If you heard the show, I would give it. I would give it a 4 out of 10. It was some great content. I wasn't firing on all cylinders. That was because I had an hour and a half sleep before the show, due to things that you don't need to worry about. Anyway, so I got home from the show yesterday and had to go off and do something else. And as I pulled up, my neighbour, who is ruining our street because he's building a new house, basically. And so you can't park in the street because the whole street is filled up with his trucks and his skip and his diggers and all of this stuff. And there's so much noise. And when you get up at 4 o'clock, it's nice to have a little doze in the afternoon. Can't do that in my house. Cannot doze in the afternoon because of all the work going on. And I've been very polite to him. Although in the past couple of weeks, because I'm getting more and more annoyed with the work that he does, I don't want to talk to him. So when I go out of my house, I do this. I'm nearly 40. When I go out of my house and I see this neighbour in the street, I will pretend to be on the phone so I don't have to have a conversation. I'll put the phone up to my ear, and but I'll actually have the conversation. I'll go, well, I'm sort of leaving now, but I'll be a bit late. I do that. That's proper bonkers. But yesterday, I was too tired. I didn't put the phone to my ear as a tactic. He went, all right, Ian, how's it going? So yes, it's all right. I'm a bit tired. Bit tired? All you do is swan around all day. Oh, hey, whoa there, cowboy. I've been up since 4. I've had an hour and a half sleep. I've got 2 kids. One of them has been really sick with chicken pox. Now the other one's really sick with chicken. Don't tell me I swan around all day. And I went in. I went, oh, yeah, you reckon? And I went in and I was fuming. And I very nearly went back out just to swear at him. I nearly did. And I had to have my wife say, Ian, really, what is that going to achieve? What is that going to achieve? If he says it again, though, I'm going to use indoor language outside. Maybe you've got a tip for how I can deal with this neighbour and is building constantly. Please stop building. Let me park my car at least somewhere near my house. If you've got any tips on how I can deal with irritating neighbours, 08459 455 555. Now, there have been extraordinary developments in one of the Olympic events this morning. It's emerged that 8 badminton players have been charged with trying to lose their games. 4 pairs of players, 2 from South Korea, 1 from China and 1 from Indonesia, will now be disciplined by the Badminton World Federation, the BWF. In one of yesterday's games between China and South Korea, the longest rally lasted just 4 shots. The players were then booed and jeered by the crowd. One of the fans watching the China versus South Korea match was Caroline. She told the BBC what she saw.
To the untrained eye, and mine is highly untrained, they were literally just hitting it into the net, both teams. And when they served straight into the net. It just wasn't going over at all. And it became obvious in the arena because everyone was booing.
It's caused controversy in the world of what I like to call slow tennis. Let's go to Gavin Lee. Good morning, Gavin.
Morning, Ian.
I know, controversial. I'm being slightly flippant. I do like a bit of badminton. What has happened here? Because this is incredible.
It is. I mean, I can imagine they probably thought somebody had, run onto the court as some kind of comedy joke. It was like watching the top-seeded players of the world play like beginners. I mean, you described the best rally being 4 shots. The China versus South Korea game, the first one, almost every shot was going into the net on serve, and so if it was returned, if it managed to get over the net, then return serve went out or long. Now, what seems to have happened is, and the motive potentially for why they lost is, why they wanted to, is because they had already qualified all sides, and losing for all of them meant a much easier draw in the next round. For South Korea, China, either side to have won, they would have faced the Chinese World Championship team in the quarter-finals. And what's happened this year is, for the Olympics, for the first time, they've got a knockout stages for for the badminton, the group stages, rather than the straight knockout that they usually do. So there is a school of thought which suggests maybe the system is flawed, that if you win, you take on the much stronger team. But, I mean, that match, the umpire came on, the South Korea match, warned them, the fans started to boo. When the South Koreans eventually won the game, they didn't even celebrate. They were still being booed off by the fans. And the next two teams came on, the South Koreans and the Indonesian teams. They did exactly the same thing. More boos followed. The umpire got the black card out. There's a disqualification card. But the coaches of the two sides said, well, the previous two teams didn't get disqualified, so that was rescinded. And then the match finally finished.
This is just incredible. They face disciplinary action now. Could they be disqualified? What could possibly happen to them?
It really isn't clear. I mean, the badminton...
I'm guessing this is unprecedented, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Some of the members of the federation have suggested that a disciplinary and an outright disqualification could set an example. It could stop it happening again in the sport. That they know it's not the Corinthian spirit, it's not the rules and the sportsmanship. It is absolutely not the way to play. Having said that, you can see the moral dilemma that I'm sure some of them were facing. Do they play the best teams, or do they cruise through to the finals with an easier team? They have said, the Chinese team in their defence, that they were just saving some energy. However, news just in the last 20 minutes, the Chinese Olympic delegation has launched a separate investigation into those players who've now been charged by the Badminton World Federation. The technical charge is allegedly not using their best efforts to win, so essentially trying to lose the match. We shall see it, and I think there will be calls as well today, Ian, in the meeting for the disciplinary for an overhaul of the group system as well.
It sounds like it's the group system that's flawed. I'm guessing there's not a rule written down in the world of badminton that says you don't, you have to play as well as you can. I'm guessing that's not written down. So they've probably not broken a rule, have they?
Well, they've been charged. I guess the charge that they've found most relevant is not using their best efforts to win. So they've found something which is in the sporting rule book anyway, with the Olympic spirit rule book. So there's something to throw at them. It's just whether they think that the punishment fits what they did. And I guess if you and I were sat in there and we'd paid £75 for a ticket, and you're thinking, this is one of the shortest matches in Olympic history. You're knowing in the swimming across the road from you, essentially in the Olympic Park, Michael Phelps is breaking the all-time record as being the most successful. And you probably sat there thinking, what is going on? And I'd join in. I'd be booing him, tell him to get off the court.
Elsewhere, very quickly, Gavin, the best chance for an Olympic gold for Team GB today, isn't it?
It is. He's had 6 days to rest, but Ale Wigo, Bradley Wiggins, fresh from being the first ever Brit to win the Tour de France, is in the time trial. His real contenders, I think, in gold medal are slightly injury-ridden. One of them has, Fabio Cancellara has a broken wrist. Yeah, so
I didn't mean that.
Very, very quick mention. How good were the women's football yesterday? How sharp were they, beating the gold medal favourites Brazil 1-0?
Yep.
I think, now they've won 3 out of 3 for the women's team, facing the Canadians. I think they've got to be medal hope, possibly more so than the men's football team.
Fantastic. Gavin, listen, we'll be speaking to you more as this week progresses. Thank you very much there. I will be watching a bit of Wiggins a bit later on. The thing is, if he loses, or doesn't do very well, and he gets criticism, which he would do if he didn't get at least a silver, he would get criticism for it. You should just go, yeah, but I won the Tour de France. And that's the end of the argument, isn't it? That's the end of the conversation. That was our reporter Gavin Lee there talking about the Olympics. Let me know what you think about the badminton. Did you see the badminton? Was it that obvious? It sounds like it was pretty obvious. If the referee was going on and saying, hey, come on, pull your finger out, people were booing them. If a black card was withdrawn, it would seem that pretty obvious that it was happening. 08459 455 555. Did you see it? Even if you didn't see it, what do you think of it? Does it go against the Olympic spirit? Is it cheating, really, to make sure that your next round's a little bit easier? They've already got through. They've already qualified.
Beds, Hearts and Bucks News.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
These are your headlines this morning at 7:15 on the 1st of August on BBC Three Counties Radio. 4 women's double pairs in the Olympic badminton competition are facing disciplinary action for allegedly trying to lose to secure an easier draw in the next round. Spectators booed last night as the Chinese top seeds, 2 pairs from South Korea and 1 pair from Indonesia, regularly served into the net or hit wide. Plans to knock down the point in Milton Keynes have been delayed. The owners were due to submit a planning application in June, but are updating their plans following a public exhibition. In sport, Wycombe lost 3-0 to QPR at Adams Park in last night's pre-season friendly. We'll have a full sports bulletin with Simon in 15 minutes. Weather coming up soon with Phil Garner. And also coming up on the show this morning, we're talking about anorexia. It's after research that the age of people suffering from anorexia is getting younger. Hear more after this. Going off on a very slight tangent, if you missed Jonathan Vernon-Smith's show yesterday, do listen to it on iPlayer. The first hour is fantastic. He's talking about abuse on Twitter and the internet. I didn't hear all of it. I heard some of it. The last call of the first hour yesterday was incredible. It was incredible. I was in my car and I could not believe what I was hearing. Go and listen to it on iPlayer. Honestly, it's amazing. OK, this is a fascinating story. The UK's leading expert in anorexia has told the BBC's Newsnight programme that people suffering from the disease are younger than ever. Brian Lask explained that new research also showed there was a genetic link between people who develop the illness. We'll speak now to Deanne Jade from the National Centre for Eating Disorders. Good morning, Deanne.
Good morning, Iain.
How difficult is it to spot anorexia in young children, and what kind of ages are we talking about?
Well, your first question is really difficult because very young children don't behave like adolescent children. They don't complain about being fat. They don't say they want to go on a diet. They don't even know they want to go on a diet. They just suddenly want to stop eating, and they usually complain to parents about tummy aches or feeling sick. So the parent will go to the doctor, and the doctor will do all sorts of tests and think, well, maybe there's something physically wrong, and then just decide, well, maybe the child is malingering and bad. So I think in a recent test, 90% of doctors fail to diagnose anorexia in a very young child.
And how young are these kids that we're talking about?
Well, they can go down as young as 5, which makes it really, really hard to spot the illness because, you'd think a 5-year-old child wouldn't really care whether they're frightened of being overweight. It's that which is really at the centre of anorexia nervosa. It's not just feeling bad, it's actually being scared of gaining weight. But children as young as 5 are very weight conscious, and that's what surprises us.
Why are they so weight conscious? Is it popular culture? How does this develop in someone so young?
Well, Iain, even though the results suggest, there's lots of young children getting the disorder, this has really gone back 20 years, 30 years, as long as I've been working with eating disorders. And there weren't so many pressures on young children not to to be slim and to look very sexy, the kind of thing we're accusing parents of doing to their kids nowadays. So there's always been young children who get anorexia. There's always been very young children. We don't really know why they become quite so sensitive. I've spoken to my colleagues. No one's really given a very good answer, At 5 years old, maybe they're just reading Snow White, but they seem to be very tuned in to whether it's okay to be fat and okay to be thin. So, for example, a child of 5 is not very keen to play with a very fat child. Why are they aware at this age? We don't know.
But what do you make of this research that says there's a genetic link?
Yes, I've known about this for a long time.
Right.
I'm really, really enthusiastic about the work that Brian Lask is doing. We know about genes because if one twin gets anorexia, it's very, very likely that if the other twin is identical, they'll also get anorexia. So we've known about it. We don't exactly know what the genes are, but it doesn't mean that you will get anorexia. As Brian said on TV last night, many of us might have the gene that will sensitize us to getting anorexia, but it doesn't mean we'll get it. Things have to come together, maybe like particular stresses or very low self-confidence, or maybe some horrible thing has happened to that person. So genes are only expressed when lots of things come together at the same time.
Deanne, we're running out of time. Very quickly, who should people contact if they need help or they think someone in their family might need some help?
Well, there's obviously BEAT, the Eating Disorders Association, and our organisation, National Centre for Eating Disorders, will provide any help that a parent needs if they're worried about their child who doesn't seem to want to be eating and who's not thriving.
Deanne, thank you very much. That's Deanne Jade there from the National Centre for Eating Disorders. For more information and support, you can go to all those organisations she mentioned, of course, and you can look at the BBC Newsnight's webpage for details as well on who to contact. Back to the Olympics. A Chinese swimmer who won a gold at the London Olympics has rejected suggestions that she's taken banned drugs. Yi Xuan, who's 16, shaved more than a second off the world record time in the women's 400-metre individual medley. It was interesting because even the presenter on the BBC was going, well, that looks a bit odd. She was kind of scratching her head and saying, A Buckinghamshire board member of the UK anti-doping says there's an element of sour grapes about the criticisms directed at Yi Xuan. Professor John Brewer is also the Director of Sport at the University of Bedfordshire and says the teenage swimmer should be given the benefit of the doubt. Good morning, Professor.
Good morning.
Her speed has been called disturbing. Lots of people have been scratching their heads. Accusations of using performance-enhancing drugs. Why is it so unbelievable that she's achieved this?
I think, first and foremost, you've got to look at the drug testing procedures that are in place. They are extremely rigorous. The in-competition testing period started over 2 weeks ago. Athletes are tested all the time by the anti-doping agencies around the world, and of course they're tested during the games. She will have been tested because she's a medal winner, and her samples are going to be stored for 8 years.
Wow.
So, you know, even if she's trying to take, she would have been taking something that currently isn't on the ban list, there is every chance that she will be caught. So my own view, and I know it's the view shared by many in anti-doping, is that she would be very, very foolish to have taken anything illegal, because she will be caught, and we have very, very rigorous processes in place. So I think it's, you know, we've got to give her the benefit of the doubt. We very much hope she hasn't been taking anything, but if there is a chance she has, then I think even after they hang the medal around her neck, there is still a chance that she will, or a very strong chance that she will be caught.
I'm surprised they keep it for 8 years. Is that so that, you know, in the future when the tests are even better, that they can go back and have another look?
Yes, or if there is something that is discovered that is deemed to be illegal, then they can look at it and say, hang on a minute, we might have to have a second look at some of these samples. So yeah, it's one of the most forensically analysed samples that the athletes give once they've won a medal. So I think the other thing is, of course, that they are exceptional athletes. They're not like you or I. Everybody who wins a gold medal at the Olympics is right at the top end of the physical and mental spectrum, if you like. They have to choose their parents carefully, is something that I often say, because they're genetically very different to the rest of us. And all of them are talented. And if you look not just at this swimmer, but you look at people like Michael Phelps, who's just won his 19th medal, Usain Bolt, who we'll be seeing performing in just a few days' time. They are all exceptional individuals, and they come along every so often in sport. That's why they are Olympic champions. And you know, bear in mind as well that China has a huge population pool to choose from, over 1 billion people, probably 20-25 times more than we have in this country. So we shouldn't be surprised that exceptional individuals come along and perform well at an Olympics, because that's what an Olympic Games is all about.
You mentioned, Professor, choosing their parents. There was a report that I glimpsed at in the paper. I've not read it in great detail. I'm suspecting there's a whiff of nonsense about it. That in China they are genetically modifying the athletes. Is that absolute nonsense? Is that possible?
Well, we know, working in anti-doping, that gene doping or artificial genetic modification is a threat. It's something that I went to a conference on at the start of the in-testing period, and there were some real experts in gene doping there, far more expert in that area than I am, who said whilst it is a threat, their belief is that at this stage, fortunately, it's not prevalent in sport, because it's far too difficult to do, and nobody really knows what the outcome will be. So I don't think there's anything artificial. I suppose one could suggest or speculate that there may be more, if you like, more selective processes of doing it, where you get individuals together who have been at the highest level in sport, and hope that they produce an offspring that would be an elite athlete. Whether that's occurring or not, I really don't know. I suspect not. I just think that a talent ID process, and I've just been listening to a discussion about one of our rowers who's competing later on today, who's in chance of winning a medal. She came through our Sporting Giants programme, where 6 or 7 years ago there was a sort of a process of almost advertising for individuals who were good at sport, who met certain height criteria, who could then be looked at physiologically to see whether they were gifted enough to take part in different activities. We've done that in this country, and we've now got people in the sport that I'm working with at the moment, handball, who came through that programme, and we've got rowers who came through it as well. So I think a lot of sports do that sort of thing. But they do it legally and they do it properly. And I think we've just got to hope that this swimmer came through a very legal process of talent ID, but also used all the right science, medicine and training to get to where she has done.
John, listen, thank you very much for that. That's Professor John Brewer, who is Director of Sport at the University of Bedfordshire, talking about the Chinese swimmer Yi Xuan, who is 16 and has shocked and surprised everybody. And she's passed all the drugs tests for the moment, so, you know, it's pretty outrageous. I think one of the American coaches, was making unfair accusations. If she's passed, hasn't she? We just have to accept that, and that's fantastic. Then what we've seen is some amazing swimming. Thank you, John. Now, John there mentioned the handball, and this is my new fight. I only watched literally 50 seconds of it last night. My wife was flicking through the sports, trying to find something. We ended up with the swimming. I wanted the handball or the weightlifting. Not allowed to watch weightlifting with my 2.5-year-old boy. And I don't know why. What's wrong with it? I had to fight for archery, and I thought archery's more violent than weightlifting. Anyway, Judy has texted in 81333, starting her text 3CR. Iain, I like the handball too. It's like football, but better, as you don't get all the fouling. It is. I saw it listening. What is that? We're going to watch some of that. And it's football, but they throw it at each other. Fantastic. Seen any odd sports? 08459 455 555.
Call 08459 455 555.
08459 455 555.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
That's the phone number. You can call any time about anything, any of the stories that we're talking about, and we've got a few good local ones coming up, or anything that you think we should be talking about. We're also asking this morning about clutter. After I've been... rowing is perhaps too strong a word, but clashing heads with my wife about clutter and about me leaving things in certain places, yes, possibly on a table or on the floor, but knowing where everything is, and then she is constantly moving everything. Who is the untidy one in your house? Is it the man or the woman? Because I always thought it was the man, that there was some kind of genetic predisposition that we were messy, that the women were the tidy ones. But I've spoken to 3 women this morning as part of the production team, and they're the messy ones. And messy with a small M. This isn't Mr. Trebus. We're not kind of got loads of sacks of stuff everywhere. This is messy with a very small M. 08459 455 555 is the telephone number. If you can give me a call on that. Last week, it was announced that Hatfield Town Centre was going to get a makeover. It was chosen, along with 15 other towns, to receive £100,000. £100,000, that's right, yes, from the government as part of the Mary Porter's pilot. 7 days on, market traders say the trees in Market Square are putting off both customers and new traders coming to the town. They say that what's falling off the trees is causing people to cough, and despite numerous requests, they say nothing has been done to rectify the problem. Our reporter Justin Dealey has been speaking to the traders.
The trees, I don't know the name of the trees, but they're a pollutant collecting tree that they put along on the side of the motorways and dual carriageways, and I'm pretty sure it's illegal to work underneath them because they've got fine feathers like asbestos, and when the wind blows they just go through the market and people are coughing and spluttering, and it keeps people away from the town, to be honest with you.
So that's the situation right now, but in the winter, the leaves are falling off the trees, and again, people are saying that that's affecting trade.
The trees are so big that the piles of leaf could be 2 foot high in some places, and the council don't come around and clear them up. It's either they either can't afford to do it, or there's just too many leaves. And you get piles this high, what's that, 2 foot? Like all round the bottoms of the trees where we have to brush them up ourselves. And again, then that turns to slush in the winter, and it's just a nightmare, really. Basically, the trees are too big. If they was managed, you'd probably get away with it. But so you can see on top of that stall, that was that thick all the way across the floor, like for the last 2 weeks. We've had to clear it up ourselves, and then they've come round and shovelled it in the back of dust carts and whatever.
So it's very interesting what you're saying. Only last week we were talking about the fact that Hatfield was getting this big makeover, £100,000. Have you spoken to the council about these trees? If so, what have they said to you?
The market superintendent reckons that he keeps speaking to the town management. They say they're going to deal with them, but we never get a straight answer, basically. One person blames one person, then they come back and blame him. And
so you're honestly saying that this is definitely putting people off from coming to this market, and you're losing money
as well. Put traders off as well from coming here. The lady on the pet stall, works with, the Zars mask they have on, the pollution. She works with one of them on for the last 5 weeks because of the dust and everything, because she coughs and splutters. She's got asthma. She's coughing and spluttering all day long. And people were asking her now, saying, why is that mask? And then she tells them about the trees, and then they're noticing it. So it's over the last couple of years, it ain't been so bad, but where the trees are getting bigger and bigger, more and more people are noticing it, and, people are talking about it now.
I've now moved along the market ever so slightly. Just how bad are the trees as far as you're concerned?
These trees were in trouble. They all make trouble with our stuff. I think it's not good for health as well.
So it's making yourself cough, it's making your customers cough. You're losing money from this every single year.
Yeah, every customer is not calmed down. That's why I got problem. They're not cleaning properly.
Right, 2 things from that report. If you've been, I've not been to Hatfield Market for a long, long time. If you've been there, have you spotted this? Has it made you cough? 08459 455 555. Have the trees and their debris put you off from going back to the market? Is that right? And also, the gentleman there says they haven't had a straight answer from the council. We'll get one later on. Yeah, we will do. We're talking to Councillor Mandy Perkins later on to shed some light on the situation, so we can ask her exactly what's going on. 08459 455 555. Plans to knock down the Point in Milton Keynes have been delayed. The owners were due to submit a planning application in June to build a mini shopping centre, but they're updating the plans following a public exhibition. Mark Lancaster is MP for Milton Keynes North. He's met with the owners. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning.
Mark, what did you discuss when you met with the owners?
Well, it's important really to state that as a Member of Parliament, I don't actually play any part in the planning process. That's very much down to the local authority. But obviously, like any good local MP, I try and keep myself abreast of what's being planned in my constituency. So when approached, I'm always happy to meet these people just to find out what they have got planned. And I think there has been some sort of concern that the Point is such an iconic building in Milton Keynes that whilst there is an acceptance that it is in need of sort of updating and restoration and perhaps development, we need to be quite sensitive about exactly how we do that. So I think the owners are going to go away again and see if they can't find a scheme which still manages to keep the sort of iconic Point in some form as the landmark that it's very much become.
So they initially wanted to knock it down and build on there, and now you're saying that they're considering, due to the public pressure, actually keeping the Point itself and doing something within that.
Well, I think there's all sorts of options which they will be looking at, one of which is to keep that sort of iconic structure, but perhaps put it on top of a new building. I want, if I can, though, just to sort of move one step away from... I want, if I can, just to move one step away from that, because one of the concerns I have about Central Milton Keynes is that we have a number of different sites there, which are owned by private developers. For example, there's also the... Hello?
Hello, yes.
There's also the Primark application, which is sort of a few hundred metres further up. Yeah. And what worries me at the moment is we seem to be having a slightly bitty approach to the redevelopment of Central Milton Keynes. And what I want to sort of try and get across is that I think we need a grander strategy for people just to take a step back, and rather than having a look at all of these individual applications, what is it we want with Central Milton Keynes? What's the vision for the future? So rather than having these individual applications coming forward the whole time, which don't always necessarily sit comfortably with each other, I think as a community we should be asking ourselves, how do we want the future of Milton Keynes to look? Because it's absolutely vital that we continue to attract new business, that we see the economic development of the town, that all these sort of small individual bitty sort of applications may not be the best way forward.
But is there any way to stop the bitty applications? You can't insist that there is one sort of big universal plan for Milton Keynes, can you?
No, you can't insist with the private owners of some of these plots of land, but I think my argument is simply that if we do have an overreaching strategy, actually everybody will benefit, because then Central Milton Keynes becomes this iconic place that people want to do, that people want to come to. It becomes a place that competes with many of our neighbours, and that's to everybody's advantage. So I'm not trying to stop them, I'm just trying to say, can't we all get together and have a think strategically rather than tactically about how we want the centre of Milton Keynes to develop over the next 20 or 30 years.
Oh, Mark, good luck with that, because this is why lots of town centres get ruined, because one business wants to do this, then someone else wants to move there, and I don't think people do get together and have a chat. I hope you can pull something off, because that would be great. Do you think Milton Keynes needs more shops, Mark?
Well, it's not a case of having necessarily more shops. I think it's finding the right balance of the shops that we do have, the right balance of people being able to come and to park so that people are happy to come into the city centre. Sometimes people tell me that they avoid coming in because it is so difficult to park on certain days. And I think this is really why we do need a grand strategic plan to make sure that we get the right balance between the types of shops that we have there and also parking and other factors to make us be a destination that people really want to come to, which will continue to help with the economic development of the town.
Mark, finally, taking off your MP hat for a moment, as a human being who has an opinion, what would you like to see happen to the Point?
I think we need to recognise that it has been very much an iconic building from the start in Milton Keynes. I do recognise that it does need to be redeveloped. It's the one part of central Milton Keynes that needs a bit of a facelift, shall we say. But if we can somehow keep that iconic structure whilst at the same time making it a much more vibrant place that people will go to rather than walk around, as is often the case at the moment, that has to be a good thing.
Mark, thank you very much. Mark Lancaster there, MP for Milton Keynes North. What do you think about the plans for the Point? Are you a fan of it? Do you think it's an eyesore? Should we get rid of it? Should we put it on top of the new building? That's an interesting one. 08459 455 555.
Beds, hearts and bucks news.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
7:45, Wednesday the 1st of August. These are your headlines this morning on BBC Three Counties Radio. 4 women's doubles pairs in the Olympic badminton competition are facing disciplinary action for allegedly trying to lose to secure an easier draw in the next round. Spectators booed last night as the Chinese top seeds, 2 pairs from South Korea and 1 pair from Indonesia, regularly served into the net or hit wide. Plans to knock down the Point in Milton Keynes have been delayed. The owners were due to submit a planning application in June, but are updating their plans following a public exhibition. In sport, Wycombe lost 3-0 to QPR at Adams Park in last night's pre-season friendly. And here's the weather for Beds, Herts and Bucks. A brighter day with some sunny spells, but a few showers are also expected. Top temperature, 22 degrees Celsius. And coming up, as part of the Olympic travel plans, Hertfordshire Showground became a park and ride for thousands of spectators to use on their way into London. We've sent Justin Dealey there as we hear that now it lies almost empty. Good morning, this is Iain Lee on BBC Three Counties Radio. Now, there's to be a change in the way that social workers are regulated. Up until now, social workers in England have come under the umbrella of the government's General Social Care Council. From today, they'll be regulated by the independent regulator, the Health and Care Professions Council. This means social workers will have the same national standards as occupational therapists and psychologists. Derek Green is from Ray Wire Associates, a Milton Keynes-based company who trains social workers. He told us what he hopes the changes will achieve.
The main 3 priorities I would see are, number 1, is continuous professional development, as I said, meaningful CPD, that is based on an individual plan for that social worker's development over time. The second area needs to be a clear and robust disciplinary procedure that is linked to standards expected both in practice and in training. And I think finally a very clear and very open registration procedure so that people can check whether or not a social worker is properly licensed to practice.
As someone who works in the industry, does this change that's going to come into effect hold any concerns for you?
One of the things that has happened with healthcare professionals is that they've now introduced inspections through the CQC, the Care Quality Council. If this registration body does not include an inspection element and doesn't link itself to the CQC, which it may do eventually, then effectively it's one step behind where all other health professionals are. They have had registration for a long time. They've had CPD for a long time. They've now moved to a level of very fine inspection in terms of the practice of the individuals working in the health service.
Derek Green there from Ray Wire Associates, a Milton Keynes-based company who trains social workers. We've got Mark Seal on the line, who's the Chief Executive of the HCPC. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning.
What will these changes mean?
Well, I think your previous speaker raised some very important issues, and I can absolutely reassure him and all your listeners that we will deliver on those 4 areas. We as a regulator require professionals to undertake what's called continuing professional development, and it's absolutely meaningful to continue professional development. That will be in place effective from today. We also run what we call a fitness to practice process, so if the members of the public have got concerns that the social worker is not coming up to appropriate standard, we can intervene, potentially take them off the register. And lastly, we've got a website which you can check literally from this morning to check to make sure that somebody is regulated by the HPC. It's very easy to use, very straightforward. And lastly, we have the relationship with the organisation called the CQC, who looks at the facilities. We have a memorandum of understanding. We work very closely with that organisation. So there are going to be changes, but the key thing is going to be beneficial to the public.
And people will notice these benefits, will they?
I think in terms of, as a regulator, we're sort of fairly back from the public, but over time we are going to absolutely deliver good public protection by improving the standards of the professions we regulate. That includes, as you said, groups like paramedics, but it will also include the social workers in England.
How will you know if what you're doing nationally is working locally with each authority?
Well, we go out of our way to work with organisations like employers. We have special meetings throughout the country throughout the year. So we talk to the people that employ, for example, social workers. We meet members of the public. We meet social workers. We think it's vital to get that feedback, because if you're not delivering as a regulator, you're not a good regulator. So we'll know pretty quickly if we're not coming up with the right answers, the right systems.
Social workers, quite often in the press, they get a bad rap because we only really hear about them when something bad happens. Is this going to help their image at all, do you think?
Well, I've been meeting social workers, both individuals who are working with members of the public, but also in the universities, and the social workers I meet are incredibly dedicated professionals working in potentially very difficult environments. And I think the combination of a good regulator like the HPC, the initiatives that's been taking place, the new professional body, are all going to gradually improve the reputation, improve the understanding of the public of what social workers do. So I think we are going to get an improved environment.
Mark Seal, thank you very much, Chief Executive of the HCPC. We've got Ophelia in Luton who's calling. Good morning, Ophelia.
Hi there.
You are a social worker.
I am.
What's your take on all of these changes?
I just feel that it's a lot of, no disrespect to this man from the H, whatever they want to call themselves these days. It's a whole heap of rubbish. I've received my documents telling me that I have to re-register.
Right.
First of all, the GSCC Council knew they were going out and still took a full year's subscription from all social workers. So I've paid in February, and now I have to pay again. This new company is charging more than, whereas we paid £30, each year. Now we're having to pay £76, and I don't see anything that's going to change for social workers. This idea that, you're going to see things rapidly improve for social workers. The only thing the GSCC Council did was prosecute social workers or discipline them in respect of misconduct, and you see it published. There's different publications we have that we read. There was nothing about our development. There was nothing challenging employers about our caseload, which is a constant problem, and there was nothing about the protection of social workers. All they do is just a body just taking money. And you know what, because I need to practice as a social worker, my local authority who I work for has already sent me an email yesterday saying that if I don't register, then I can't practice, which means no salary. What's going to change? Nothing is going to change. And that's what's disappointing. You talk to any social worker, and all you will hear is that nobody talks about the good work that we do, especially when you work in children's and families. It's always about the bad work, and nothing's going to change. The government's just changed the name. Nothing's going to change. There's a different organisation taking more money for doing twat.
Well, Ophelia, I've apologised there for the slightly fruity language at the end. I do apologise. She was obviously very passionate about she feels, but if anyone was offended by that, then you, of course, have our sincere apologies. Ophelia, thank you very much for your call. Do call in again. Just watch the indoor language, please. You've got to be very careful. Got young ears listening at this time in the morning. Again, sorry if anybody was offended by that, but I think you'll understand it's a very emotive topic that we're talking about here. A week ago, we were expecting thousands of spectators to start using the Olympic Park and Ride from the Hertfordshire Showground. But our presenter, Roberto Perroni, drove past there yesterday, and apart from a few coaches, it was virtually empty. So we got our reporter on the case. We've sent Justin Dealey down to investigate, and he's been speaking to Alan Hardy, who lives next door to the ground.
So, Alan, you live next door to the Hart Showground, and beforehand you had major concerns about traffic up and down the A5. So, how's it been since last Friday?
Well, exactly. I mean, we were worried that there were going to be up to 3,000 cars slammed up against our fence, worries over security, noise, access. Since Friday, it's been a big nothing, just a handful of cars there, as you've seen probably. And who knows how many of those cars belong to the stewards and security people that are basically walking around talking to each other at the moment because they haven't got much work to do. There are a few coaches there, and we have seen one or two driving up and down the road empty. Sort of brings a new meaning to the phrase driving on empty. And so I don't know. So a lot of money's been paid. Their contracts have been signed. ODA presumably got a sack full of money to waste, but just nothing going on there at all. It's weird, disgraceful. I don't know what the word is, but on a par with empty seats in stadiums, I suppose.
It is very, very bizarre, because I actually drove into the showground a moment ago. Hopefully the site manager will talk to us. We'll keep our fingers crossed on that.
Right.
But looking across the field's certainly up to your property here, just completely empty.
Completely empty.
Embarrassing? Is that too strong?
It is embarrassing, because they were talking about bringing traffic right up to our fence. We managed to push it back a bit. I don't know if you can see the signs there, but there's just nothing there. There's just one or two cars, handful of cars right in the middle of the site, isn't it? Did they know that beforehand or not? Is this a surprise to them or not? You're going to ask them the questions. Are they going to give you the answers?
Well, we hope so.
All right. And, it's just really on a par with what's happened, in January, where people wouldn't explain to us what was going to happen. They didn't tell us about their plans until the last moment. And now I don't know what their story's going to be. I mean, we're just totally always kept in the dark.
And why do you think it hasn't worked? Because thousands of people are going to the games, we know that much. Is it a case of people, do you think, having the convenience of their car, driving as near as possible, getting a train? Why do you think this hasn't worked here? Well, we were saying it hasn't worked. Looking across the field, you think it hasn't. Why do you think it hasn't worked?
I suppose the thing is, you park your car here, take a coach into London. From here, you're still way from the venue. It's probably just too far. People think, why do I want to go and drive my car, park my car, pay to then be driven by coach on a journey of 2 hours to London? There are probably much easier ways to do it. Take a train or something, or get nearer, as you say.
And let's get this absolutely straight. Up and down the A5, just lastly on this, we know it is a very busy road. Since last Friday, you haven't noticed an increase of traffic whatsoever?
We haven't noticed anything at all, and probably you can see signs all around this area, park and ride.
And on the M1 as well?
Yeah.
Expect delays, the signs say?
Yeah, nothing. If anything, it seems to have been easier than ever. Perhaps people have sort of kept away from the area because of that. So was that their plan, to set up a park and ride to stop vehicles coming here? I don't think so.
Conspiracy, I love it.
Could well be that. But as I say, the ODA have to answer questions there. They've got the money. Probably they've got so much money they can just throw it away. And McDonald's, who handled the actual operation for them. And obviously the site manager must be happy. I mean, he's got a nice contract, and it's not going to harm his grass at all, is it, for the Hart Show? He's doing all right.
You're being very cynical. Hopefully we'll get some answers. Thanks so much for your time.
Many
thanks.
We'll see later on if Justin did get any answers. If you've driven past that or if you've used it. Surprised? Shocked? Park and ride schemes. I don't think I've ever used a park and ride scheme. I like to get to places. I like to either get the train to the place or drive to the place myself. I never really used park and ride. I wondered if they ever really took off. I remember sort of in the late 80s they were going to be the thing that was going to save cities and towns, and they never really did. If you've used this one, or if you've considered using it, or now you know that it's empty, maybe you're more likely to use it. You thought it was going to be absolutely packed, and you're more likely to use it. 08459 455 555. We're talking... here we go. Jill is talking about traffic. My husband's job involves him driving in London and the home counties, and he says the traffic is much less than usual. I think people have listened about the warnings about driving in London and have stayed away. And also, a lot of the Olympic family, a phrase I hate, people involved with the Olympics, have decided to use public transport. So quite often the Olympic lanes are being turned off. We're talking about who's messy in your house. Cynthia in High Wycombe says, my son was tidy and very helpful to me. My daughters are like you. They leave things everywhere. Well, maybe I've got this completely the wrong way round then. Maybe it is the girls who are the messy ones and the blokes that are the tidy ones. And I'm the exception that proves the rule. 08459 455 555. This is BBC Three Counties Radio. Lots coming up in the last hour of the show. More about the Hatfield Market and the trees. More on the badminton shenanigans that I just find fascinating. And we'll be talking more about anorexia. All of that after the latest news and sport with Simon Oxley. Thank you very much, Simon. Good morning, this is Iain Lee on BBC Three Counties Radio. Suddenly it's 8 on the 1st of August. Where on earth does it go? Coming up in the next hour, Jonathan Vernon-Smith will pop in and tell us what's happening on his show. I hope it's half as good as yesterday's. Or even more than half. I hope it's good. That's what I'm trying to say. Yesterday's first hour was amazing. If you missed it, go to the iPlayer and listen to it. If you haven't got much time, go to the iPlayer and listen to the last call of the first hour. We're talking about internet bullying and stuff like that. Incredible. Thing is, I know what this guy's talking about, but the fact that he phoned up and admitted to it. Anyway, Jonathan will pop in at about 8 or so to let us know what's happening a bit before then. Coming up in this hour, more on the Olympic badminton. We'll be talking more about anorexia. And also, I do want your phone calls. We're trying to find out who is the messiest in your home. Is it the men or is it the women? I've been having arguments with my wife, and it turns out I'm not the only person. About me putting stuff down somewhere and knowing exactly where it is. And her moving it, or as she calls it, tidying up. Why? Just please. Please leave my pile of papers and books on the floor there. I know those DVDs are on that table, and I know exactly which order they're in. 08459 455 555. You can, of course, text this morning about anything that we're talking about. Including Hatfield Market, which we'll be discussing a little bit later on. 813-33, start your text, 3CR, or you can email 3cr@bbc.co.uk.
Call 08459 455 555.
08459 455 555.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
8 badminton players have been charged with trying to lose their games. I'm totally going to look this up on iPlayer or YouTube later on because the audio of it sounds incredible. I want to see it actually happen. 4 pairs of players, 2 from South Korea, 1 from China and 1 from Indonesia, will now be disciplined by the Badminton World Federation. In one of yesterday's games between China and South Korea, the longest rally lasted just 4 shots. The players were then booed and jeered by the crowd. We can speak now to Olympic silver medalist and badminton ambassador from Milton Keynes, Gail Ems. Good morning, Gail.
Good morning.
You were part of the commentary team last night. What did you make of what you saw?
Well, basically, we weren't showing the matches that were the disgrace matches on TV. We were actually focusing on another match, but the boos were so loud, we were just distracted by what was actually going on. And when we looked over, we saw... I still can't believe it. The world number one sees a Chinese pair, Yu and Wang, who'd never even lost before last year, trying to serve out in the net. Didn't want to. They wanted to lose. But not only that, their opponents were trying to lose as well. So it was just incredible scenes. Like I think my 2.5-year-old would have won on that court. It was just disgraceful. But it was all because earlier in the day there was a shock upset where the other Chinese pair lost. They came runners up in the group in the end instead of winning. So that meant they put... Sorry, I'm walking and talking.
That's all right, Gail, don't worry.
So I should be fit for this, shouldn't I?
I was going to say, you're a former Olympic champion. You're a little bit out of breath now.
I know. But then, so the other Chinese pair, the number 2 seeds, went in one half of the group. And in order to be in the other half of the group, the draw, the world number ones had to lose, or they had to be runners up in their group. So to avoid the 2 Chinese pairs, so they avoided each other. So, because the other Koreans didn't want to face the Chinese pair either, so they wanted to lose to go in the other half of the draw. So this was going on, and the tournament referee didn't really was going, come on, play. But why should they? They were like, well, why should we? We want to go in the other half. Well, they're both pairs have gone through some knockout stages and qualified, but they were just trying to choose their position in which way they went.
It does. Part of me respects them for both trying to lose, and I'm definitely going to go and watch this match later on because it sounds incredible. This is all to do with the change in the system and how people get through, isn't it? So it's not a knockout system anymore. How does it work?
Well, it's groups now. In the doubles, groups of 4 and 2 go through. So if you had one pair go through, we wouldn't have this because everyone would be trying to win. But because 2 go through, and then you choose your route to final. And of course, when the Chinese-Korean match was going on, and the Chinese were more stubborn than the Koreans, so the Korean ended up winning, even though they didn't want to.
God.
And this had a knock-on effect to the match later on, because the Indonesian pair and Korean pair that went on, they didn't want to play the Chinese. They were trying to lose. So we had 2 matches, exactly the same, of 4 world-class women's doubles players, all trying to pairs, all trying to lose. And it was just embarrassing. The crowds were booing, cheering, and the tournament referee just didn't know what to do.
We were saying earlier on, it's unprecedented. I'm chuckling slightly, but I'm guessing it goes against the Olympic spirit. And also, if you've paid £75 or whatever it is to go and see world-class badminton, and you just watch people deliberately playing badly, that's going to be pretty bad for the crowd. No wonder they were booing it.
Well, yeah, and it was embarrassing. You know, that this is. Ochi just said it's very un-Olympic spirit, and this is what the Badminton Federation has got to decide. This is not just any other tournament. This is London 2012, and if we want our sport to stay in the Olympic program, we're going to have to do about this. And it's so. In any sporting environment, there are some suspect results or something like that, but this was so blatantly obvious. And I do not blame the players, because I think some of them may have been instructed by the coaches or managers to do this as well. So who knows? It's just what happens now. It's how really important.
What do you think should happen? Should they be booted out? Should they say you've sort of cheating with a small C? You're out.
Yeah. If I was a tournament referee, I would have last night disqualified also straight away. I would have done that, because it's the Olympic Games. It's not like any other tournament. Any other tournament, you know, whatever.
But then, Gail, on the converse, they've not actually broken a rule, have they? They just played unsportingly.
Yeah, they haven't broken the rules. So this is going to be their argument. They haven't broken the rules. Both pairs were going through anyway. They'd qualified for the knockout stages. It was just to determine which place they were going to be in the draw. But, you know, I don't know how they can do it, but this is, you know, for me, you can't do that in the Olympic Games. You know, this is, like I say, any other tournament. They're going to let them get away with it because, you know, okay, fair enough, we'll learn from it and never, ever have a group stage tournament ever again. But, you know, what do you do? There were a lot of people very, very angry. There was some of the volunteers who were really upset as well. You know, as one woman crying, it affected her so much. She was crying. She just couldn't believe she was watching this.
Wow.
For her, the whole thing of sport has just been completely tarnished. She's seen players do this.
Gail, listen, we'll let you go because we're losing the line a little bit, but thank you so much, and we may come back to you when a decision is finally made on that. Thank you very much. That's Gail Ems there, Olympic silver medalist and badminton ambassador from Milton Keynes. It's exciting. For someone who, a week ago, was not into sport, I'm loving it to speak to all these Olympic champions. How cool is that? She's won an Olympic silver medal. What have you done with your life? I asked that question mainly to me. Very, very little in comparison, it would appear. 08459 455 555. What did you make of that? Did you see it? I'm going to watch it this afternoon. I'm going to dig it out and have a little look, and it sounds incredible. I mean, Gail was obviously frustrated and upset by it. She was saying one of the volunteers was in tears. Oh, there we go. What did you make of it? Did you see it? Was it unsporting? If you were in the crowd last night, I would love to talk to you. Booing at the Olympics. That's got to be the first time that's ever happened. I can't imagine there's ever been booing at the Olympics ever before. Has there? 08459 455 555 is the telephone number. Do give me a call. You can also call me on that and let me know who is the messiest in your house. We're trying to find out. It's 12 minutes past 8, and let's have a quick look at some of the front pages of the newspapers for those who missed it. I haven't got the Express in this morning, so we don't know if it's a mortgage, an immigration, or a pension story today. It'll be one of those three, but I can't be any more specific than that. I do apologise. The Independent. Ministers plot end to civil service neutrality. The Independent's the only one that's kind of gone small on the Olympics on the front. There's a picture of Phelps winning his 19th Olympic medal, making him the greatest Olympian of all time. And it looks like they used a tiny cameraman to take that picture. Don't know why you wouldn't do it at head level. The Daily Telegraph. Keep calm and carry on. Oh, if I see that on another mug. We are only one medal short of what we should have at this stage, British official insists, as fans await first gold. And then there's a picture of one of the equestrian teams, Zara Phillips there being awarded a silver medal by her mum. That's weird, isn't it? I might go and see my mum this week and get her to give me a silver medal. Because you could do that when it's your mum. Although my mum, I have to admit, is not part of royalty and is indeed absolutely bonkers. The Times, there's loads of fantastic photographs coming out of these Olympics, whether you like sport or not, and there's a young Chinese lad, it looks like he's about to nudge the table tennis ball with his nose. It's kind of a fake cover. You open it up, there's another cover, and it's the greatest Olympian. American swimmer Michael Phelps wins 2 medals to take his games tally to a record 19. That's incredible, isn't it? You would just go out one night wearing them all, but have them under your jacket, and then, you know, if you're chatting up girls or something, you say, oh yeah, by the way, unzip the jacket. Look at these. Have a look at these bad boys. The Guardian, it's another picture of Phelps, the greatest Olympian. Michael Phelps takes gold and silver to become the most decorated medalist in the history of the Games. And the Daily Mirror and the Sun are outdoing themselves for the most ridiculous cover this morning. They're both cheering on Bradley Wiggins. And the Daily Mirror has Here We Go. And it has a cutout of the circumference of Bradley Wiggins' head. Basically, it's a wig. And you're supposed to wear this as he rides past. And the Sun has cut out gold sideburns to celebrate Bradley Wiggins, of course, the first mod to win the Tour de France since Ronnie Lane in 1967. And the Daily Mail, the moment Zara's gold dream ended. And that's her horse knocking over a bar. And also discussion, can it really be right to arrest someone for a Twitter insult? Again, JVS, first hour, yesterday's show. Seriously, absolutely cracking. I was enthralled in my car yesterday.
Beds, Hearts and Bucks News.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
It's Wednesday, the 1st of August. These are your headlines this morning on BBC Three Counties Radio. As we've been hearing, 4 women's doubles pairs in the Olympic badminton competition have been charged with misconduct by the sport's governing body for not trying hard enough to win. Spectators jeered as players deliberately served into the net and hit the shuttlecock out of the court, apparently in a bid to secure an easier draw in the next round. Plans to knock down the point in Milton Keynes have been delayed. The owners were due to submit a planning application in June, but are updating their plans following a public exhibition. In sport, Wycombe lost 3-0 to QPR at Adams Park in last night's pre-season friendly. I'll have a full sports bulletin with Simon in 15 minutes. Weather coming up with Phil Garner. And next we'll be hearing earlier we heard claims that trees in Hatfield are putting off market customers. We will find out more in a few moments. Jonathan Vernon-Smith there giving his thumbs up to the internet and the good work that it does. I loved your show yesterday.
Did you?
The first hour I thought was fantastic. That call at the end, and I won't go into too much detail because I think people should go and listen to it. If you've got 5 minutes, listen to the last call of the first hour of yesterday's show. It was incredible. The thing is, I've encountered what he's I play Xbox online, and I've encountered what he's talking about, and the fact that he was going, yeah, I do it, it's a bit of banter. Very unpleasant, I thought. Very unpleasant.
Bizarre. Very bizarre.
And I can hear the shock in your voice as well.
Well, I'm just thinking, why would anybody want to be so horrible to anybody else, whether they're on the internet or anywhere else?
What games are you playing on the Xbox at the moment, Jonathan?
I've never, ever played on an Xbox.
Come round, we'll have an Xbox party.
I don't know.
No, yes. I will come to one of your dinner parties.
Will you?
Only if you come and have a session on Xbox. We'll play some FIFA, some Call of Duty.
Okay. I don't mind. I'm up for new experiences.
We'll do it. What's on your show this morning?
Coming up on the big phone. You're worried now, aren't you?
I am worried.
See your face. Coming up on the big phone in this morning at 9. Have antidepressants helped you or someone you know? There's been a large increase in the number of prescriptions for antidepressants in England. Listen to this. I was quite shocked when I heard this. New figures out today show almost 46.7 million prescriptions for antidepressants were handed out in 2011. That's an increase of more than 9% on the previous year's set of figures. That's quite a massive increase, isn't it? This means that antidepressant prescriptions accounted for the largest annual rise in items dispensed in England last year. Well, on the big phone in today, I want to hear your thoughts on this. Have antidepressants helped you or someone you know? If you have a view, 08459 455 555. Perhaps you are of the opinion that antidepressants can literally save somebody's life. Perhaps they've saved your life or someone in your family's life because depression was absolutely eating you up. Or perhaps you have seen quite the reverse. Perhaps you think antidepressants are handed out like Smarties when really they're not necessary. I'd love your views on the big phone in at 9.
I'm on them. I take them. I'm quite happy to admit that I'm on antidepressants, and I do worry because it was in one of the papers today. People calling them happy pills, and I worry that it will put people off going and there's kind of a stigma in some of the papers about them that it will put people off going to see them because they can be life-saving things. If you're struggling and you are depressed. I don't see any problem with going and have a little chemical kickstart to...
How long have you taken them for?
On and off for about 10 years, I would say, on and off.
Really?
Yeah.
But you stopped taking them after a while?
I stopped taking them once because I went on holiday and I forgot them, and I had terrible withdrawals. And I stopped for a while, and then things kind of just went down a little bit, and my doctor said, well, let's go back on. I don't take a particularly high dose or anything, but it's a little kickstart.
But is there not... Forgive me,
yes.
but now you've revealed this.
Yes,
I really must probe.
Please probe.
I'd just like to know whether... there is an argument to say once you start taking antidepressants, you kind of mask, you're masking the feelings rather than dealing with the feelings. And there may be something that you could do with your life that would stop you being depressed naturally.
It's an interesting way of putting it. I think what it does is, for me, is it stops me going right down. It keeps me a little bit even, but I am still aware of the issues that are perhaps... I think sometimes depression is purely a chemical thing, and so a chemical thing to help that is fine. But it gives me an even base that makes me aware of the things that I then need to deal with, and it gives me... the energy is the wrong word, but it's all I can think of. It gives me the impetus to then perhaps deal with those things.
Fascinating. Thanks so much for being open, and I hope other people will be open after 9 this morning. Have antidepressants helped you or someone you know?
I shall see you at my house for some Xbox, sir.
I'll be there.
Cheer you up. He looks terrified. He looks absolutely terrified. But imagine imagine you're online and suddenly you hear Jonathan Vernon Smith's cackle as he gets shot during a game of Call of Duty. It could happen. Dreams can come true. You can hear me shuffling papers around in the background as I get the next story up. Earlier on, we heard how trees in Hatfields Market Centre are putting off customers and new traders from coming there. The town was chosen, along with 15 others, to receive £100,000 from the government as part of the Mary Porter's pilot last week. But 7 days on, and market traders say the stuff falling from trees is causing people to cough. Despite numerous requests, they say nothing has been done to rectify the problem.
I'm pretty sure it's illegal to work underneath them because you've got fine feathers like asbestos, and when the wind blows, they just go through the market and people are coughing and spluttering, and it keeps people away from the town, to be honest with you.
Well, Councillor Mandy Perkins joins us on the phone now to shed some light on this. Good morning, Mandy.
Morning.
Firstly, I'm confused by this. What trees are these?
They're London plane trees. London plane trees are actually among the most numerous large street and park trees planted in an urban environment, because they're very tolerant to harsh conditions.
And what stuff is falling off them?
Well, the young leaves and the leaves in general do have something. It's difficult to explain, obviously, but they do have minute hairs on them, which are an irritant if breathed in and can exacerbate breathing difficulties with people if they've got things like asthma.
You've got hairy trees?
Hairy leaves.
Oh, my goodness. And so that's what's making people cough? The leaves of... the hair on the leaves is...
Can be an irritant, yes. To most people, they're not.
Well, we've heard from some market traders earlier on this morning who are upset by it, saying it's driving business and other traders away. Have you had complaints about this, Mandy?
Well, we haven't. And this is what... It's quite sad about this story, actually, because we haven't had anything at all at the council. I suspect that the traders have actually been complaining to the market operator.
That's what they said, I think, yeah.
And those complaints haven't been passed on to us as a council.
So what would you suggest that the traders do, Mandy?
Well, I think they should... I think they need to speak to us as a council. We need to do some investigations. We need to see whether or not this is above the norm,
right?
The acceptable norm.
And if it is, the trees could go?
I don't know. I suppose there is an argument for that. They're very well established trees. They've been there many, many years, and this is the first time we've had any comments about them. You're right. the town has been fortunately awarded money from the Porter's bid, for which we're obviously very grateful, and we want to do everything that we can to encourage business into the town centre.
Well, Councillor, stay there, because our reporter Justin Dealey is live at Hatfield Town Centre now. Justin, you just hearing what the councillor was saying?
Absolutely, yes. I'm live in the Market Square this morning. I've been talking to more traders this morning. I think it's important for Mandy to hear this as well. I have been talking to Andrew Lester a few moments ago. Now, he suffers with what he describes as the Hatfield hay fever. Listen to this.
That's correct. I never suffer from hay fever anywhere else, anywhere in the country, or the world comes to that. Only when I come to Hatfield. I've been trading on the market now 12 years. Every Wednesday and Saturday, bring my antihistamines with me to take, purely because I'm suffering hay fever here.
It's quite incredible. So the simple answer, as far as you're concerned, would be to trim the trees. That would hopefully solve everything.
A drastic trim of the trees is needed. It's the pollen in the summer here. You can see it, the naked eye, very, very clearly. It just gets everybody's throats, the coughing and spluttering. Horrendous.
And just to get this absolutely clear, so you're saying you've been right the way across the world, really. You've never suffered with hay fever, apart from here twice a week, on a Wednesday and a Saturday, when you're here on this market stall?
Completely 100%. Only in Hatfield. Wednesdays and Saturdays, comes spring, all the way through to the autumn.
Absolutely fascinating. The words there of Andrew Lester. And just going to put a question to Alan Brown. Alan Brown is joining me live in our radio car. Alan is the manager of the market here in Hatfield. Alan, you've heard the conversation with Mandy. What's your reaction to what you've heard this morning?
Yes, we have been on to Councillor Dean Archer and also Lynn Spraggs. Also, both the current and past market managers know of the problem in the market, as they've been round on several occasions with me, and I've showed them the leaf problem.
So this is quite simple. You're not saying remove the trees. You don't want that. What you're saying is just cut the trees back, and that's the end of the conversation. We can all move on.
I think so, yeah, that would certainly help. It's been got worse this year because of the adverse weather conditions. We've never experienced what we're experiencing in previous years, but now the market is looking very gloomy and very dark, and the trees seriously need to be cut back.
Justin, can I interrupt ever so slightly? Councillor, we've got Councillor Mandy Perkins. You heard Justin's guest there, who says that the council have been approached.
Well, Dean Archer actually is a Hatfield Town Councillor, not a Borough Councillor.
Right.
I think he must be talking about Lynn Sparks. Now, I haven't heard anything. Lynn hasn't spoken to me about it, and I believe she's on holiday, but I will. That I can certainly take up. The only thing I will say, which is an interesting thing, is that they did have their canopies lifted in June this year. And so actually the canopies were lifted and are, from the ground, they're now 4 metres high, the sort of the under, the bottommost leaves. I suspect that it's quite true that there is an issue because of the bad weather. I went up to Hatfield last night, and it did seem quite dark up there. And so maybe this is something that we need to look at again.
Justin, very quickly, just stay there. We've got a caller. We've got Graham in Luton. Good morning, Graham.
Good morning, Ian.
You're aware of these trees?
Yeah, I used to plant them.
Oh, it's your fault then. We can all come around and blame you.
Listen, I can't understand how that chap in Hatfield gets hay fever only in Hatfield, because the London plane is used in most cities across the country, because it's what it's supposed to do. The bark peels off itself,
right,
and it cleans the air.
Right.
If you walk around London, there is millions of them.
You see them everywhere.
Absolutely millions of them everywhere.
Okay, so you're surprised that anyone could be struggling just in Hatfield to breathe.
Just in Hatfield, because they are literally all over this country.
Okay, Graham, listen, we've got to leave it there because we're running out of time. Thank you very much, Graham in Luton. Thank you to Justin, who was at Hatfield Town Centre, and of course thank you to Councillor Mandy Perkins. Councillor, no doubt we will chase this up when the other person you're mentioning gets back from holiday, and we'll see what happens there.
Call 08459 455 555.
08459 455 555.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Good morning, dear listener. This is Iain Lee on BBC Three Counties Radio. We've had such a packed show. We've had very little time for your texts and your phone calls, and I do apologise for that. But we have got a phone call now from John in Hemel, who's called in about the Herts County Showground being used as a park and ride system. John, have you used this?
No, I went into the Transport for London website,
to plan my journey from Dunstable to the Olympic Stadium, it came up with 3 options. 2 were bus to Luton, and the other one was bus to St Albans.
Right.
So the bus to St Albans went past Redbourne Showground. It didn't pick up the showground at all.
Oh. Well, the reason we're talking about this is because it was supposed to be packed, and Justin Dealey was there earlier on, and it's been empty for the last few days. And so you're saying that the bus doesn't stop there?
Well, it doesn't surprise me if they're not telling you it's available.
John, what are you
journey?
What are you going to go and see at the Olympics?
The athletics.
Oh, really?
Saturday morning, yeah.
You got the good tickets. Not to say that.
My son got them, actually.
Fantastic. Do you know any idea who's appearing on Saturday morning? Who you might see?
No, I haven't a clue.
Oh, well, listen, John, thank you for the call. Have a fantastic time, won't you?
Yeah. And you're doing very well, by the way.
John, you're very kind. Thank you. I'm getting by, I think. I'm only here for the rest of this week. I say the good tickets. They're all good tickets. And I was watching the Olympics yesterday, and I said to my wife, I said, I really should have tried harder to get some tickets. I say try hard. I didn't try at all. I didn't try at all because I thought the Olympics would be really boring and I would hate every second of it. And I was watching it yesterday and was very, very jealous of the people that were there. This morning we have been discussing anorexia. People are suffering with anorexia at a younger age than ever before in the UK. That's according to one of the country's leading experts in the field, Brian Lask. Earlier this year, Lask's team also published research showing a genetic predisposition to the disease. Our reporter Brendan Murphy went to Milton Keynes to speak to Sophie Denman, a committee member of the Eating Disorders Support Group Balanced MK. Sophie told Brendan about her own experience of suffering from anorexia.
The serious episode of anorexia started at about the age of 17, but I did have issues with body image and self-esteem from a much younger age, following on from being a gymnast, basically. Probably at the age of 10, I'd moved to a different gymnastics club. It was a very competitive environment. I was made to write down my food diary for the week, which would then be analysed by the coaches and criticised or that kind of thing. That made me very aware and conscious. We were also weighed and measured and praised for losing weight or becoming slimmer. And I think it was from then that I started to feel the need to lose weight and had episodes of starvation, but not to the kind of long-term extreme that comes with anorexia. It was more of trying to lose weight and then overcoming those episodes, but obviously came back to me at a later date.
So from the age of 10, then you felt pressure in terms of how much you weighed and having to... I guess it was that criticism from the gymnastics coaches and stuff which had a big impact on you in later life, is that right?
It is. I think I felt singled out as well a lot in terms of my weight. My figure is different to a lot of people. I'm very petite. And my coach one time had us all standing there, a team. We were going to compete in Russia. And she explained that she wanted everyone to lose half a stone, but me to lose a stone. And that was about the age of 11. And so it kind of was quite triggering in terms of, what was going to happen in later events.
You recognised that you had anorexia when you were 17, is that right?
Yeah, I think that's when my weight dropped to significantly low level, and when I was no longer able to function properly or socialise or do work to the level that I wanted to at school and that kind of thing. That's when doctors got involved. My parents were very concerned and teachers were also concerned, so I think that's when it became a serious issue for me.
And so you're kind of recovered from anorexia now. For how long have you been recovered from it, if you like?
I think the lines are blurred slightly between the different eating disorders and when I became what I'd say is maintaining recovery rather than fully recovered. I think at the age of about 2021 was when the eating disorder was no longer in control of me and I was in control of it. But, you know, I have had episodes where I feel like I'm slipping back, but I'm able to pull myself out of them.
And how old are you now, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 23, nearly 24.
So it's a few years then since you've been in control of the situation, yeah?
Yeah, a few years. A lot happier now.
Sophie Denman there from Milton Keynes talking about how she maintains recovery from anorexia. Now, this next story I think is fantastic, and we were talking about it in the office yesterday, and people were scratching their heads going, I don't get it. I love stuff like this. I genuinely think this is brilliant. 100 cyclists powering a huge puppet of Lady Godiva. Just let that image sink in for a bit. 100 cyclists powering a huge puppet of Lady Godiva will arrive in Milton Keynes this afternoon. They are cycling from Coventry to London as part of the Cultural Olympiad. The puppet will make its way to Campbell Park in MK, where there'll be a proms concert. Hilary Davan-Wetton is the conductor and founder of the Milton Keynes City Orchestra. He'll be playing at the event. Good morning, Hilary.
Good morning.
This sounds bonkers and fantastic at the same time.
Yes, I think it's a sort of pleasingly eccentric idea, actually.
Exactly, and this is why stuff like this, I think, should be applauded. Now, I understand this is the first time there's been a great British prom event in Milton Keynes, is that right?
Yes, we have had outdoor, big outdoor concerts before, which have been hugely successful. Obviously, it's nicer if the sun's shining. But this is the first time we've had an all-British programme, and I felt since we had this extraordinary British eccentric event happening, we should match it with all-British music, and it's a marvellous mixture of some of the very famous and pieces everyone knows. We're going to have Rule Britannia and Nimrod and things, with some music people won't be so familiar with, which is still absolutely wonderful. And British music of the last century is absolutely our golden period, and we should celebrate that along with a bit of eccentricity, I think.
Give us a couple of names of the more obscure pieces you'll be playing.
Well, the composers are not obscure, but one of them is actually a wonderful man called Butterworth who was killed on the Somme, who only effectively wrote about 4 orchestral pieces, and we're playing one called The Banks of Green Willow, which is absolutely hauntingly beautiful. Nobody listening to this tonight will go away without being touched by it.
Fantastic. I love it. Now, a new amphitheatre has recently been built in Campbell Park. Have you played there before?
No.
Are you looking forward to it? Do you think it's going to become one of the more exciting venues to play?
Well, I think open-air venues are actually very exciting, because apart from anything else, people don't have to sit in a fixed seat. They can eat and drink, and all this used to happen in 19th century concerts in England. People ate and drank all the way through the concert. I've got no problem with that at all. It doesn't stop you listening.
One of the best things is I've been to outdoor classical concerts, and if the weather's nice, you're on a deck chair, you've got a rug out, got a nice picnic, you've got some good people with you. There isn't a better way to spend an evening.
No, there absolutely isn't, and you have a sort of complete experience, and you go home and feeling you've had a really good time.
Hilary, listen, the best of luck. It sounds wonderful, it sounds ridiculous, and I'm sure it's going to be a huge success. That's Hilary Davan-Wetton, who is the conductor and founder of the Milton Keynes City Orchestra. And you can hear more on this story on Drive Time with Roberto from 3 p.m. And our reporter, Jessica Cooper, will keep you updated as Lady Godiva arrives in the new city. I love stuff like that. And there were people yesterday in the office going, what? I don't get it. And I don't get it, but that's brilliant, because someone has thought, what we need is a giant Lady Godiva powered by 100 cyclists. And someone's gone, yeah, OK. Yeah, all right, we can do that. Yeah, we can pull that off. I love it. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. Right. Where have we gone here? There we go. Hang on a second. Let's see if we can work this out.
Beds, Thank you. Bucks News.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
A little bit of the old freezing of the computer, but don't let that put anybody off. It's 8:45. And let's get the news headlines now on BBC Three Counties Radio. 4 women's doubles pairs in the Olympic badminton competition have been charged with misconduct by the sport's governing body for not trying hard enough to win. Spectators jeered as players deliberately served into the net and hit the shuttlecock out of the court, apparently in a bid to secure an easier draw in the next round. Plans to knock down the point in Milton Keynes have been delayed. The owners were due to submit a planning application in June, but are updating their plans following a public exhibition. In sport, Wycombe lost 3-0 at QPR at 3-0 to QPR at Adams Park in last night's pre-season friendly. The weather for Beds, Hearts and Bucks. A brighter day with some sunny spells, but a few showers are also expected. Top temperature is 22 degrees Celsius. Coming up, as part of its 10th anniversary, the Kevin Duggan Golf Academy in Luton will welcome golf's Ryder Cup today. And next, we will speak to the man who set up the academy. And JVS is here from 9 o'clock this morning with the phone in. Today he is asking, have antidepressants helped you or someone you know? There we go. The computer, it would appear, has completely packed up on us this morning, so we should be having no more music or sound effects for the rest of the show. I can only apologise. Now, today is the 10th anniversary of the Kevin Duggan Golf Academy in Luton. It was created in memory of Kevin, who was killed by a drunk driver when he was 19 years old. To commemorate the event, Golf's Ryder Cup will visit the academy today, along with the chairman of the Ryder Cup committee, Sandy Jones. Kevin's dad, Declan Duggan, set up the academy at Stockwood Park and joins me in the studio now. Good morning, Kevin.
Declan.
Declan, sorry, I do apologise. Look at it. We've got the computer has gone wrong. Everything has gone wrong. Good morning, Declan. How
Good morning,
are you? Sorry,
I'm
you've just been ushered in absolute silence, and well done for doing that. Now, this event is being held in the memory of your son, Kevin.
Yeah.
Can you remind us of the accident?
It wasn't actually. We don't call it accidents. It was actually a car crash.
Right.
And my son was killed by a drunk driver coming up to 13 years ago. And I ran a pub in Dunstable, and we decided to set something up in Kevin's memory. And after many late night sessions around the bar, we come up with the idea of a golf academy. And we raised, in about 5 years, we raised over £300,000.
Wow.
Yeah, huge amount of money. All done from the back garden of my pub in Dunstable. And so we worked with Luton Borough Council, and who were very, very helpful at the time. They gave us a piece of land up at Stockwood Park, and we drafted in Ken Brown, who's a BBC golf commentator who lives nearby in Harpenden, and he brought some of his team along, and they designed a beautiful 9-hole golf course. We built a 4 bay driving range bays, and we built a beautiful putting green, and it opened 10 years ago. And it was a great day, and Sandy Jones, who I've met a few times now, who is the head of golf in Europe. He's the chairman of the Ryder Cup committee. He's the chief executive officer of the PGA in Europe, and he's come down to celebrate with us today 10 years because they realise and they understand what a great success the Golf Academy has been.
Why golf?
It was a game that me and Kevin played together. And it was one of the few sports that me and my son actually went out, and the quality time that we had together, we did it on a golf course. And he started playing. We both started playing at the same age. Kevin was about 12. I was about 30 something, and I can't remember exactly how old I was, but. We learnt together. We played at the same standard. We used to go off and play in competitions. I used to get invites to all sorts of society events, and it was once just something that me and Kevin fell in love with. I have a great affinity with golf, and not only that, it's a beautiful, beautiful visual. It's a visual memorial to my son that everybody can see when they drive past into Luton, and as a family, we're very proud of it.
See, that must be amazing. I've got 2 boys. I mean, they're toddlers and a baby at the moment. But to lose a son in such circumstances, I can't even begin to imagine how you would move on. Not only move on from that, but also create something positive out of the tragedy. That must have been so hard for you and your family.
Well, everything's difficult. People say that time is a great healer, but unfortunately, grief and loss never goes away. It hangs around with you forever. It's how you manage that grief and loss. And I channeled it into 2 projects. One was getting the law changed because my son was killed by a drunk driver who wasn't charged for killing my son by drink driving. And the other was to build a lasting memorial to my son. And I probably had about 5 years concentrating on that, and people still friends of mine still say to me, Declan, have you started grieving yet? Because of all the things that I've been involved in. Yeah. And I'm still involved in road safety campaigns. I'm still involved in golf in various different ways. But it's something that you learn to live with it. You manage it. It never goes away. But we've done some fantastic things in Kevin's memory, and that's what keeps us going.
Well done. The great thing about this event is it's bringing 2 opposite ends of the golfing world together.
Yes.
How explain that?
Well, the Ryder Cup is probably the biggest golfing tournament on the planet. It's where 2 two continents of the Western world, America, which has 50-odd states, Europe has to choose from 26 countries, I believe, and they come together head-to-head every 2 years. Europe are the holders of it at the moment, and it goes off to Chicago in September. So this is the last public event of the Ryder Cup before then. And we started off at our humble beginnings in Stockwood Park at Luton, which happens to be an absolutely beautiful park, by the way, for all different reasons. And we are the beginner starter centre, so we are there for people who just want to pick up the game and start where it, and progress from there. It's got a beautiful driving range bays, it's got putting greens, it's got a 9-hole academy course, it's got an 18-hole course, so you can start there from the age of 3 or 4 and work yourself right up to the top of the game. And so it is, and principally, and it was set up for underprivileged kids, and we have a deal with Luton Borough Council that underprivileged children can actually take part and play various different courses up at Stockwood Park free of charge. So it is one spectrum, it's one end of the spectrum to the other, which is where you very, very start to play golf, and the very, very end, the Ryder Cup. Sandy Jones is going to bring it, and some of the kids today who...
Well, yeah, what's happening today? It's the 10th anniversary today, isn't it?
There's a great competition up there today. It's actually called Stars of the Future competition, which is run on the Golf Academy course for young people. So there is a competition today which finishes about 1 o'clock. Sandy Jones is going to be there to present the trophies for all the kids. He's going to have the Ryder Cup with him, and they're going to be able to have a feel of the Ryder Cup and get a feel. He's going to do a little talk about how it runs and how it works and how you hopefully get to that stage in golf. He's a great orator, he's a great speaker. He does the opening ceremonies at the Ryder Cups for Europe, and he's just a real decent guy to have around, and it gives us up at Stockwood Park, really good kudos, if that's not the right word for it, but it gives us real good backing from probably the highest people in golf, and it's coming right directly to Stockwood Park at Luton.
God, I've never played golf. It just looks too hard. You've got to get a tiny ball in a tiny hole 400 yards away. Are you any good at it?
I've been playing hard since the age of 32, I think it is. I've been playing for 25 years, say. And it's probably... Sometimes it's the hardest game in the world, but it's not just the hitting of the ball. It's the walk, it's the smelling of the flowers, it's the 4 hours, it's the camaraderie ship, it's the talking, it's the mixing, it's the sharing. I get a great buzz out of playing golf. I call it my therapy.
Well, Kevin, if people want to come along today, they can turn.
Listen, Sandy Jones is going to be there for a couple of hours. He's going to have the cup with him. The kids are going to be so excited. If anybody wants to come up and have a look and listen to Sandy Jones do a little talk on the Ryder Cup, they're most welcome to do that.
Declan, thank you very much. Sorry I got your name wrong at the start. It's,
That's
Declan
okay.
Duggan, Kevin's dad. The Kevin Duggan Golf Academy in Luton celebrates its 10th anniversary. You're going to have a fantastic day, I'm sure. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
There we go. It just seems like... The thing is, 2 weeks ago, as I've said on this show already, I hated sport. But the Olympics have totally opened my eyes to thinking, well, actually, do you know what? Maybe the last 39 years I've been living a lie. I might come out as someone who I'm coming out as a sport liker. I might do that because I've watched some amazing things the past few days. We were talking about the handball. And yesterday, we're flicking through the channels. If you press the red button on the channels, you're in terrible trouble because you can see all of the sports that are going on. And handball popped up on screen. No idea what handball was. And my wife allowed me to watch it for a whole 50 seconds. Thank you so much for that. And we got to... it's basically football, but you chuck a ball around. You do it with your hand. How wonderful is that? BMX is taking place. BMX! When I was a kid, it was the hard kids that had BMXs, and now they're in the Olympics. I should be watching some of that. And so I have become, literally since the weekend, I have become turned on to the world of sport. Something is stirring within me. Maybe it's had the same effect on you. This is what they are always talking about, the Olympics, the legacy of the Olympics. I think I am the Olympics legacy, me, personally. Becoming into sport. We'll talk about this a bit more tomorrow, maybe. If you have always been not into sport, I think is perhaps the polite way to put it. Has your attitude changed as a result of the Olympics? Mine has completely. We can talk about that a little bit tomorrow, and lots of other stuff as well. I think we've got time. Quickly, just a quick look at the front pages of the newspapers again before Jonathan Vernon-Smith comes on and does his thing at 9. Why not? Why not? Did you hear the stretch there? That's how unfit I am. Oh, yes, I will. We'll have a look at some of the texts as well. We'll get some of those texts in before the end of the show. But a quick look at the front pages of the newspapers. The Daily Mail. The moment Zara's gold dream ended, as Zara Phillips, looking down in horror as her horse takes an extra step and clips the fence, costing her team crucial points during yesterday's final. They got a silver. Silver's all right, isn't it? The Mirror and the Sun are doing this ridiculous, and it is ridiculous. Isn't it? They're doing these things where you can cut out, with the Sun, you can have Bradley's gold sideburns to wear and cheer him on. Or the Daily Mirror, you can cut out his hair and wear it like a wig. Here we go. You see what they've done there? Help Bradley triumph by wearing his lucky sideburns with pride as Britain goes for a hat-trick of golds today. Is that going to cheer him on, really? If I was riding down the street on my bike and I saw loads of people sort of a little bit looking like me, it wouldn't help me to ride my bike any faster. It would scare the life out of me, I tell you that. The Guardian has got an amazing picture of Michael Phelps, the greatest Olympian. Michael Phelps takes gold and silver to become the most decorated medalist in the history of the Games, winning 19 medals in total. We never managed to get hold of Paul Hardcastle. That was the challenge at the start of the show. We never managed to pull that off, and for that, dear listener, I can only apologise. We're all hanging our heads in shame here. The front page of the Times has a picture. Well, it's got one of those fake front pages, which always upsets me. It's a picture of a young lad about to nose a table tennis ball. Don't call it ping pong. But the main front page is Michael Phelps celebrating another victory, and he's got another gold medal. He's quitting after this Olympics, so other people get to have a go, which I think is fair. 19's the limit. The Daily Telegraph is keep calm and carry on, and there's Zara Phillips being given a silver medal by her mum. Which is a bit weird, isn't it? Strikes me as being a little bit strange. And The Independent is the only newspaper that's not gone Olympics crazy with the front pages. There is a picture of Michael Phelps holding his gold medal, which is amazing. And ministers plot end to civil service neutrality. It turns out there are other things happening in the world while the Olympics are going on. Who'd have thunk it? Right. That's it for me. I'm off to have a cheese sandwich. I'll be back tomorrow at 6 o'clock with your breakfast show, but do stick around, because coming up very, very shortly, it's the excellent Jonathan Vernon-Smith.
Getting beds, hearts and bugs talking.
This is BBC Three Counties Radio.